I think it's a smart move. It's definitely an interesting move, but I think if you're going cheddar-wise, I think he got an increase.
And I think he's big enough. Like, I don't think a lot of people can do that, but Noah Flegel can do that.
I approve waterboarding. They're talking about wakeboarding. The thing about wakeboarding, every trick is an invert.
Backside.
Air railing.
A new dimension.
All right, we're back. Episode 7, Shop Talk, Grab Matters. We got Gavin Stuckey on the far left, recurring guest. He was just here a couple days ago. John Dreiling, been on this podcast a lot. Myself, Hunter Thane, and Gavin Giglio. I got it right. Okay, sweet. I'm 1 for 1 on that one. We got a lot to talk about today. We got events to go through. We got, a lot has happened since the last Shop Talk. I think it was pre-Wake the City, which few people were at that event. So we'll definitely talk about that a little bit. And then some other events too, like Double or Nothing events coming up. But to start, we're going to start with the Mount Rushmore of the most rewatchable wakeboard parts. So this isn't the most rewatchable movies. This is the most rewatchable wakeboard parts. And we're going to start with either Gavin Giglio or Gavin Stuckey. They're going to rock, paper, scissors to see who goes first. So best of one.
Ready?
Let's see, boys.
On shoot.
On shoot.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
All right, so Gavin picks.
Okay.
Stuckey picks.
I'll go first.
All right.
Check the list here. I'm going to start out with, I might be a little biased here,
A little closer to the mic.
but I'm going to go Sincerely Trent.
Okay.
That was not on my list. As you said, I would be on everyone's list.
It wasn't on my list either. Was it on your list?
Yeah, it was.
Okay,
It was
all right.
there.
It was 50%. All right.
To be fair, I got a Trent edit on my list, but it's not that one. My pick is RAF, the edit RAF, not Beyond Perception.
Just his name in all caps, right?
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
his
All
name in
caps.
all caps.
Yep, yep. On the Liquid Force Wakeboards YouTube account, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Know exactly what you're talking about. Oh man. All right. I didn't think it would come to me this quick. I'll go boat side. Randall Harrison, Quiet Please.
Nice.
Yeah. It's just it goes hard. Put it that way.
For my first pick, I'm going to go with formats, RAF part, both of them, or just
That was
the
a-
end
Yep.
one.
Okay.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah, I'll go with the end one. That one was pretty crazy.
That works. Yeah. Definitely on my list. All right. So you get another one because you go back to back. We go snake draft style. We work our way back down.
Next, I'm going to have to go with In All Seriousness, Yanel Cohen. That one was definitely most rewatched for me growing up.
Yep.
Yeah, same here. That was definitely on the list.
That one goes hard for sure. Man. All right. I'm
That wasn't on my list, but it's only because I probably saw him do those tricks every day anyways in person, and I was like, I'll just watch it in person.
going to go Dom Hernler in the debut. That part. A lot of bricks footage there. The song. He's got no bucket. Hair flowing. A lot of steez.
I actually didn't. I don't know if I consciously did this, but I didn't consider movies because I was kind of thinking like I'm sitting in a room with you guys. What am I going to put on YouTube? But for me, it's Slingshot, Cross, Air, and Gun is Welcome to Team Edit.
Yeah. Yep. It's a good one. Great song. I watch that edit a lot.
You can tell my age.
I'd say for my second pick, I go Insight, the section from Graham. The
Good
last
one.
Banger. I think it's 4 minutes. Heat.
All heat. All killer, no filler on that unit. All right. You got another one?
Oh, I go back to back.
You go back to back. Snake
Okay.
draft, yeah.
And my second pick, I'm going Felix Georgie 2018 Rear Wake. I think that's like Stefan, I think
Yeah.
should be rewarded for everything he does behind the camera. And he killed that one. So did Felix. So that's my second pick.
That is an all-time real wake. If you're putting like real wake parts up there, like that is very near the top, I think. If not the top.
Yeah.
Disagree?
Shout out to Stefan. No, I was going to say Stefan has most of my videos on my
Okay.
list, to be fair.
Fair.
But actually, just because we're on Real Wake, this is what I was going to say next, but my favorite Real Wake part that I always put on is Brenton Priestley, the 2016 one.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2017.
Is that the one where he hits the
2017
elbow
one,
that's like super
2017
high up and
The one he didn't
50,
win.
51, yeah.
The one he didn't win with. The second one.
is that the one with the
Where he hits
fence
the
down rail?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
He won the
Yeah.
first year, and then I think, it was Ryder voted, and I feel like I don't know if they want to disperse it or I don't know. We can talk about it later.
Okay.
But I think you should have won with that one, maybe.
BP's got a lot of solid footage.
And Felix won with that one, and Felix didn't win with the 2018 one. Felix won in that year, 2017,
Yeah.
and then didn't win the 2018
Well, because
year
they
either.
told Felix you need to ride boat, and Felix said, I'm not riding behind the boat. And then he didn't win.
Yeah, I think it's the same situation as Brian.
Yeah.
It's like, I
Understandable.
don't know if people wanted him to win 2 years in a row.
Story.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Matty Muncy all in. I hadn't watched that in too long, and then I rewatched it today, and I was like, I should watch this more.
That's a good choice. I didn't think about that one.
Yeah, slept on.
That's fair. That's fair. Next. All right, I'm going to have to go with Daniel Grant, the debut section. I definitely just love watching Daniel Grant ride. Been watching him for a long time. And then for my final choice, I'd be remiss if I didn't do it. I have to put Young Guns, Victor Salmon, Blake Bishop, Stefan, Dream Team, sick at it. Can watch it all day.
Damn. Okay, I forgot about Blake Bishop completely when I was making this list.
But DG's part is classic.
I
Yeah,
feel like that song could
that's-
be
dude,
controversial, though. I feel like some people could hate that song.
Controvert.
Like in terms of like, oh, I don't like that song.
That
Well,
is
I've just
fair.
never heard that.
Polarizing would be
maybe
a
I
word.
could see it,
I
but
would
I've
use.
never heard one person say that.
I think that's the easiest song to link to a part.
Oh,
it's notorious.
The second you could hear one note of that like whole thing, and you're like,
For sure.
I know the
For
part.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very iconic.
So good.
I
I almost feel like this whole list could just be debut parts, though.
I mean, yeah, debut.
Not
Well,
every
it's because the
debut
debut
part,
is
but-
such a good soundtrack. Like that's
Yeah.
part of the reason why it's so good. I had
But
three
like
parts from it.
Felix, obviously, too.
I wish I could just pass and skip for later, but I can't do that. So I'm gonna do.
Is this not your last one?
This is my last one, but I just have so many on here. Whatever, we'll do honorable mentions. I'm gonna go Dylan Miller 2012. Banger. I feel like you haven't.
Wait. Is this not the? Is it called Dylan Miller?
This is the name of
2012?
the edit on Vimeo, Dylan Miller 2012, and it's the original post date.
What's the edit of Dylan Miller after that? What's the name of it? It's the slow song and everything.
Yeah,
Taylor Hanley filmed it.
yeah. No, it's
So
not that
good.
one. Yeah,
That one's so good.
yeah. Dylan's got a lot of good edits, but yeah, I'll go with that pick.
Okay. Well, I am going to go with the one that maybe is the most surprising that I throw on all the time, and that's Trent Stuckey at 313.
Just laps. That's what it reminds me of. Just lapping through and
Yeah.
through. Like
Yeah.
that's his park riding every day,
To-
and then he just had extra clips. And
To me,
Camera's out.
I mean, we can talk about what makes a rewatch about it later, but to me, just the vibe of that one makes me want to ride the most today. Like if I wanted to watch a video sitting in Oto's parking lot to get me hyped, that's probably what I'm throwing on. And that is actually what I throw on usually. Like if there's a situation like that.
All right, Gavin, what do you got?
final pick, right?
Final
Okay, so
pick.
I saved this one for last because I knew none of you guys were gonna pick it, but it's actually called No Place Like Home, Delta. It's by Trevor Maurer and Josh Twelker.
That one's so good.
And I think it came out like just before COVID, but it's
So good.
Wow.
like the editing is so good, and the tricks aren't the hardest, but them West Coast boys make
Yeah, yeah.
everything look so good.
So
And
good.
It's just the vibe. It's meant. No one picks it, but it's on all the time.
In that same vein, I had Tyler Hyam edit Here to Stay
I like that edit too.
because that one goes hard.
It's a similar vibe.
But it's like
Josh is
Ty
the
Hyam
first.
like stepping it up like I'm doing like
Yeah.
back-to-back nines, like a bunch of other shit. So, all right, we got honorable mentions. I mean, I got like 10 more on my list, but you guys got.
I actually didn't pick a bow edit because that's not what I would watch rewatchable for me. And I didn't pick
Really?
because I was thinking.
What
like,
about
YouTube content.
Mike Schwenny and Dog Days? Would you rewatch that one?
To be honest, I don't even like. I remember some of the carving clips, but I don't remember that part as much. Like I love Randall's part in Dog Days because of the song,
Yeah.
so good. But no, I mean I could think of a boat part that I would pick, but honestly, the part that I probably would throw on is just Mike Dowdy's Real Wake. Just 'cause like what? I've actually watched like his a lot of Mike Dowdy's old edits where he does the first double world blind and stuff.
I watched Mike Dowdy Makes Moves was on
That's-
here. Which
that's
is
the one
Alliance
I
edit, yeah.
think, yeah,
That's the one where he
so-
does the double with the sus grab at the end, but the
Yeah.
rest of it was solid.
I'm surprised you didn't say Harley Clifford lines. You talk
Okay.
about that one a lot.
Harley Clifford lines and Harley Clifford, it's harleysplace.com was like the name of the edit. And that's my most watched boat edit, hands down. One of the most watched edits I've ever seen was just like Harley's Place, which was like the classic edit for that era, which was just like a YouTube edit that's like 2.5 minutes. And it's just like banger, 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 kind of interesting enough song. It's like a white rapper guy song.
Something a little
It's not
trendy, like
that
something
good.
yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's just like you're pumping out about back before Instagram. Like, you just pump out edits on mags all the time, you know. But it was just mental. He did so many different tricks in it.
Lines is where he did the switch and reg, whirly dick, and cage fives.
Yes.
Handle
Yeah,
belts.
that one's
yeah.
crazy, too.
That holds up today. Maybe
Yeah.
10
Oh,
years
yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
That holds up today.
Yeah, it does.
I'd say the one that was on top of my list, I didn't say it because I was for sure thought one of you boys were going to say it, with Beyond Perception. I think that one's like endless, and you can just throw it on whenever.
See, like I'll show someone that, but I don't find as much enjoyment watching that one, like rewatching that one.
For me, that's like a
As rap.
yearly rewatch. Like I won't like. Yeah, it doesn't have the rewatchability for some reason. I don't know. I'll show it to somebody.
I
And
have
they'll be
my
like, damn,
takes
that's
on why,
wakeboarding. That's
but-
fucking crazy. All right, why?
Well, one, I think for me it's a little slow. Like it's a little cinematic and slow and
Yeah.
stuff. And like if I'm just like trying to keep people's attention, sitting down drinking beers, like while we're talking, like I find there's too many moments to like lose attention. That's not to take away from the edit, but that's just because I think it's not. That wasn't the goal, was to have you watch it 1,000 times, but it was like to completely like change your thought on it.
People's attention spans were also like way longer back then.
But also, I think that something. I mean, I wrote down a list of what I think makes an edit rewatchable, because I was like kind of like just thinking about it while we're talking about it. But one thing I think that makes a lot of edits rewatchable is like a nostalgia aspect to it, and having something that like blows your mind, like and that sort of thing. And I think for me, I was like competing. I'm in pro at that time, like riding long raft and stuff. Like I don't think it was as like mind-blowing or nostalgic for me, because I wasn't coming up, you know what I mean, as like older edits were.
fair.
And I think that someone that came up at the time, that would be a good answer for them.
So the appreciation I get is how much time he probably spent building each and every one of those rails. And
Yeah.
I think when you watch it and you look at it that way, then you get a new appreciation.
Yeah, all
the
for
video.
one hit, right? Like on
Right,
all that stuff.
right.
Yeah.
And it's very rare he hit the rail twice.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I like it.
I need to rewatch it.
It's
There-
still
there
one
you
of,
go.
one
You
of my
gotta rewatch it.
favorite and most respected edits, for sure, especially for that reason. He doesn't do 3 hits on every build and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
However, it's just not something I throw on YouTube with
Fair.
the homies.
You got some honorable mentions, Julio? You got some more?
Oh.
You want to pull a list out? I feel like you should just run through like everything you had on the list, just real quick.
Oh,
if
man.
you had a lot, because you said you had like 15, right?
I had quite a few. Scumline, Twelker,
Yep, I had that
and
on
Ty were both crazy. Shredtown I thought of, but that was a little long, and those weren't like individual parts. Oh, the Coalition Volume 4. That one was the one that like game changed it for me. But again, team part. Don Pedro was crazy. Oh, and then Nico and Felix, fun at the bricks. It's just like the funniest edit of them doing like weird things. They put like the 4 flat bars back to back to back. And that one always makes
Damn,
me
I didn't
wanna
even
ride.
think about
it was
that one,
so
but yeah.
fun. It's one of my favorites.
That was sick. Yeah, I guess I'll run through mine real quick, and then we can talk about, I guess, your guys' honorable mentions, but we can also talk about what makes an edit rewatchable for us. But I had Felix in the debut, Dylan Miller in formats, Dylan Mead in P2, Austin Pratt in the first Coalition movie. Scott Byerlin hit it because I wanted to cater to the old heads, but I didn't do that. Didn't put it on the list. Riz's Turn by Nils. I like that song a lot. And then I had a mini one, which was Space Mob Calvin Miller Minute. And then Jake Flynn and Ethan Weaver in P2 as well, because they were wakeboarding to Juicy J. I'm a big fan of Juicy J. So
Okay, so I have Grand Burst Landlocked. Felix Georgie, the bricks edit with it like closed down or whatever, that they did that creative one with
the
Stefan,
tire?
of course. Yeah. Gavin Stuckey Grounded. And
who's that guy?
I have, and this is just a personal one, but like Daniel Grant and Windsor's part in Republication. Like that's what I would, coming up, I'd watch that before riding every day and pick a trick and be like, I want to learn that trick today. And same with Nico and Felix at the bricks, which is like a old school, like Nico had a little channel, and it's literally just they set up a tripod and just hit a rooftop rail.
Yeah.
And that was it. And it was just like, oh, I want to try that today. I want to try that today, you know.
All right. Did you already say all yours, Gavin? Or
I also had Felix in the debut because I liked that song. When
Very
it
good
came
song.
out, I was younger and I liked that song. And then Sam Brown has like this edit where he did, it's called USA edit, and it's like 2 minutes. I think it's to low pump. So gangster, and then it's like, I don't know, got some cuts, sick grabs.
It's
and I
different from Who Is Sam Brown, right?
Yeah, it's different.
I
And
know
it's
that
it's
is
like
a lot.
one of Sam's first things, and that's when everyone was like, dang, who's this kid grabbing in the weird wrong spots? Now it's the right spots. And then, yeah, I think that's it. Oh, and then Raph's winch part in the documentary. I think if you're going to talk about a winch part with the highest difficulty, that's the one. So I think that one's pretty sick. And the song makes it pretty endless too.
True. That is a good one at the end there. All right. So what makes a part rewatchable? I mean, we touched on all the parts that we like to rewatch. What makes it rewatchable for you? Like, what keeps you coming back?
Well, I think we've said 1,000 times the song.
Yeah.
Like, if you're
Song's
vibing to the
huge.
song, you want to hear the song again, you know?
I think filming's big for me. Like,
Yeah.
if it's a GoPro edit, like, unless if like Lemonade Normal's doing it, probably not gonna like rewatch it. Like, I pulled up seasons 1 or whatever from Lemonade Normal, like the first video they had. I don't know if you guys remember this one. It was like at International Wake Park, part of it at the beginning with like Sam and then some other riders. And like, I feel like that was like a totally different way to film GoPro at the time, at least. And I was like, okay, this is really sick. But like for the most part, GoPro, I didn't really love watching that much because I feel like you see so much on Instagram of just the standard GoPro. So filming's a big one for me. Obviously songs too. But
Yeah, I think there's some objective things. Like, if the hits aren't clean, then, you know, if they're falling off
Throw it out.
early, zeeching, whatever, like,
Yeah.
it might be impressive the moment it came out because it was like a crazy trick, but then it doesn't rewatch the same.
doesn't
because
age well at all,
someone
yeah.
did that trick on Instagram already and you're picturing the trick done better. I think, like, no fillers to me. Like, that's part of, for my edits, it's like, if there's too much fillers, like, I'm getting bored, you know what I mean? I guess it's what you consider a filler. Like, I'm not considering a style hit a filler, but I just feel like that consistent quality, I guess, of tricks across the edit. You know what I mean? Like, you can have a method in it. You probably should have a method in it. But, you know, like, I don't want to see you feel like you needed to have 20 tricks in an edit, so you put 3 in that don't belong.
yeah, it's like
Take
if
it
you do
out.
like front board same way 4 on a rail, very base example, and then later in the edit you do like front board same way 2. And it's like, well, you already did the harder version and like you just did an easy version and just to like fill this up, I guess. I don't know. I agree.
Yeah, I think,
what I'm saying.
yeah, you have to, every trick has to have a plate, like a reason for being
Yeah,
in there.
purpose. There
Don't
has to be a
just, like,
purpose for it to
throwing
be
it
in.
in there just to make your edit, like, feel like full, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Gavin's, anything?
I'm on point. Cinematography is huge, I think. Especially once you start filming, then you can't not notice the small things like that. So I think that's probably at the top. Trick-wise, same. Make it look good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Just I want to see creativity in the riding, something that like makes me want to come back, something different, something that I haven't seen. And then same thing with the filming, you know, getting more creative angles, not just a normal basic clip. And I think that's what keeps me coming back.
Yeah. Love it.
I think sometimes it can be relatability. Like, different edits have different reasons for sure, and like sometimes it can be a relatability thing. Like Trent's at 3 and 3, it's like that makes me want to ride. I think that's part of, you know, having some idea or some inspiration from it. Like, a full bangers edit isn't the only thing that makes you want to ride, you know, but it could be all bangers, you know. And then I think obviously you have to have some reason to remember it, to come back to it in a way, you know. Like,
Yeah.
so I think sometimes it could be having something memorable in it or something like that. I think that if it was like an inspiring edit, that, you know, that'd be personal, where like we might not all have the same answer, but like that specific edit like really inspired you for whatever reason. You were coming up, or, you know, I don't know, you related in some way, or like I think the overall vibe, like these things are kind of intangible, you know, but like a vibe, like some nostalgia, like, you know, because you were like so mind blown. You're like, I want to remember
You gotta have an
the
X factor.
feeling of the
Yeah,
mind.
you got to have an
blownness.
X factor no matter what it is. Like if you're just doing a park edit and it's just normal park tricks, like there's no X factor there.
I don't
There
know.
has to be.
Trent's 3 and 3 edit is on my list. I watch it a lot. A
Yeah,
lot
but
of my
that's
edits
it's
are-
Trent riding. I feel like that's different. No, like
maybe.
his standard isn't like way higher than normal people.
I think if you have a super fun vibe and you like, granted, like when I look at my list, yeah, the riders on the list are like top tier at the time when the edit came out. But I think that sometimes if you can just have like something that makes people want to ride and that makes people like, you know, it's a super fun vibe, super good filming.
I think Pedro does a really good job of that. And like those 3 flicks that he did with Dave, I think Cream Tea was like probably my favorite.
I think
But
all of
that,
those are super rewatchable.
That one,
Yeah.
those ones for sure make a list. But he does a really good job making wakeboarding look fun. Dave captures it differently, obviously. So I think those deserve to be on the list as well.
Yeah. Pedro's like, if you're talking about a park rider who, like, if you want to show somebody park riding that, like, just is straight up fun and, like, very technical too, but, like, Pedro is definitely a name high on that list, I think, obviously. But
Homie's got a lot of edits.
Even
killer.
Tiger
Dude,
Balm.
yeah, he just
I fully
cranks 'em
forgot
out,
about
dude.
Tiger Balm.
yeah, he cranks them out, dude.
I thought that was the 3 you're talking about, Dave.
No, he did. He did like the one in Mexico.
Cream Tea, Mexico, and I thought Tiger Balm was
No,
the
because he
Deca.
did dead hand.
Deca.
He did dead hand gang. Oh, maybe he's done more.
He
Dude,
did
he's done, like,
Deca. He
5.
did
Oh,
dead
he's done
hand
more.
gang.
It's more than
He's
5.
cooking.
Yeah.
No, just we were talking. He did a stunt with Dave where like they did like 3 edits really quickly or something.
Yeah, they did one at Indy, one in Liquid, and then one in Mexico. And those were the 3 I was thinking. But then he did Tiger
then he-
Balm and Deca, so he's stacked up.
Yeah,
that
he's
doesn't
stacked up,
include
dude.
like that goes back to kind of the way it used to feel where you just like before Instagram you would do web edits, you know, like they weren't like this is the craziest riding you've ever seen, but they would just giving the crowd something to watch, you know.
All right, let's talk about web edits then, because I feel like right now people are putting a lot of importance on social media. Like, or maybe not as much right now as it used to be, but I feel like that's been the push. Is like, at least from brands' perspective, maybe they're like, okay, what's your social media following? How much are you posting? What's your engagement? Blah blah blah, all that shit. And I feel like these longer edits, like stuff that La Familia does, is like gone completely to the wayside for the most part. Like, not that many people are putting out edits of 2 to 6 minutes in length, whether it's just one person or like a group of people. And I think that like to actually make a name for yourself in a sport, you have to do those longer edits at least like semi-frequently. Otherwise, there is no like legitimate piece of content that people can go to and like refer to. Otherwise, then it's just like, oh, look at his Instagram. It's like, okay, he posted the same shit for the past 6 months. Like, yeah, it's doing well on Instagram, but like there is no like actual thing I can grab onto and show someone, I guess.
One thing I was thinking about this was like when we think about the edits that you said rewatchable edits, like a lot of times we're going through riders or like, you know, we want to watch Aaron ride. Like sometimes that's the case is like, I loved his style. It was, you know, there's some nostalgia like traveling with him and stuff. And it's like, yeah, let's play his edit. And then which one am I going to play? Well, I'm going to play my favorite one. And I think that, like you said, that if you don't have an edit, then how is someone, if they like your writing, how are they going to go back to it in a way? I mean, I don't know, maybe kids do go to people's Instagram. I know some young kids go to an Instagram and like scroll through people's stuff.
But I feel like
But
that
is that,
Instagram
like-
has to be very, very like well, like manicured. Like you're not going to go to someone's Instagram that posts every day.
Well, the problem is that like the good clips, you're not just posting the best clips on there, right? You know, like it's hard
That's
to
what I'm
find
saying.
the
Yeah,
best
yeah.
clips. It's hard to
If
find the
you
best
know
stuff.
somebody's Instagram is like they post, I don't know. I feel like Trent is like a good example. Gavin too. Like there, like a good amount of people do this, but it's like if that person posts, I'm watching the entire thing, and then that way in 6 months I can go back and be like, do a quick scroll and be like, oh, that was like I fucked with that like 60-second edit.
100%. I think it's better, or I try to keep it kind of filtered at least, and not just post whatever and put whatever on there. I think I try, especially longer form. I think I'm one of the few people that still post like minute-long Insta edits. Like normally you just see like one
trick
iPhone
now.
clip,
Yeah.
and then maybe then the next one's the next day and the day after. And I think maybe where some other riders don't do that is because they don't want to spend, you know, this many hours doing something and then it gets less than views than you just post the one clip.
Yeah.
So there's something, maybe they don't feel as good if you spend that much time and it doesn't get a result or feedback that you want. Where posting, you know, one clip, super easy, you get feedback right away, and you get this feeling that makes you feel better and want to keep doing that. Where the longer form content, you know, it's harder to come by. It's a different appreciation.
And that's such an interesting perspective now that it's like longer form content can be found on Instagram, where like a minute is now longer form. Like when it comes to Instagram, I feel like 90% of the stuff you see is 3 tricks or less.
Yeah, well, you can even go way more than a minute now. You know, I think you can go like 3 minutes on Instagram or something. So
In real format, I think you can go 90 seconds.
okay, 90. Once you go over a minute on my Instagram, because I know different people's Instagrams are different, I can't scrub through it until it's over a minute. So if it's like a minute 5, I can now fast forward to parts.
Oh, I can scrub through any
I
reel
can't.
that's over like 10 seconds. But
No.
yeah, whatever. Instagram's weird as fuck. But like,
Yeah, everyone's just
yeah,
different.
you can
like
do
I definitely
whatever.
can't, because I've sat with people and been like, "How'd you do that?" And like I can't do it on this edit. But yeah, I think that I'm very curious what you guys think. Back when I was posting on Instagram, we were doing web edits also, like, because it came from doing a lot of those edits. So it's like I had the way we just talked about Paige doing those edits. I had a ton of those edits as well, because that's how you showed everything before you had videos on Instagram. And then it became, okay, you could post videos on Instagram, and you'd kind of just post clips from those edits, or like a clip from a contest that you're like, yeah, this ain't going in an edit. But then, nowadays, like, is it, should Instagram be something you post every day? Like, how should it be? How should social media be used? Should it be like almost like how artists use it, where it's like a painter it'd be like their, what do you call that? Like, not resume, but like body of work, or like, you know what I mean?
Your portfolio.
Your portfolio. That's what I'm
Nice
looking
poll.
for. That's what I was looking for. Like, should it be your portfolio? Because I mean, like, Gavin's is more of a portfolio than it is like just posting every day to get a lot of likes or to grow an account, But I don't know. I'm asking your guys' opinion on what you think. Maybe there's not one answer, but
I don't know.
No, I think it's completely an image that you want. If you want to post every day and go for the Thomas Herman kind of thing, where he's prioritizing views over anything, that's the way to do it for sure. You stay on a steady path, you post so over many times, and you're going to keep gaining more audience. But you can keep it kind of filtered, post what you like, only tricks that you worked hard on, not same thing, you're not overusing clips, stuff like that, and it becomes more of a portfolio. And I think you can do both. It just depends on the rider.
Yeah, I feel like you can't do both. Like, you couldn't do Thomas Herman and what you're doing.
It's one or the other.
It's one of, like, you got to pick. Yeah,
For
for sure.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Definitely. Because I feel like people aren't leaving Instagram anymore. So the whole, like, click the link to watch the full edit, like, it's not happening.
Well, that goes to my next question. Who should be filming edits? Because if you're, like, a kid, like, I was always traditionally in the approach of, like, you need a part. Like, you can't be a pro wakeboarder without a part. And I still kind of feel that way. But, like, should a kid waste his time on an edit, like, for YouTube? Or should he just try to make a minute for Instagram? Like, what?
I don't think they're mutually exclusive, right? Like, if you're filming a YouTube edit, can you not, like, repurpose those clips for an Instagram edit? Like, it's not that different.
You can. I think Trent did a very good job. After he filmed Sincerely Trent, he posted all of the clips on Instagram, like, as 2 hitters or 3 hitters afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a kid coming up, trying to figure out what he should do in the industry. He has no context of what the brands
I think
are
that's
looking
what he
for,
should
what
do.
we're looking for. He should film a YouTube edit.
Yeah.
And even if he's just trying to get a board sponsor.
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't do that. I feel like that's the best approach, right?
Well, like, the reason he wouldn't, the reason I asked this question is because you just made a comment about how people won't go to the link anyways,
Yeah, but you're getting the content is what I mean. So, like, you're getting the social content. Like, you might as well then have that separate piece on YouTube that's like, hey, I composed a part. This is how it, like, I made it. This is how it looks. And yeah, throw all the shit on Instagram because, like, nobody's actually going to click the link. But, like, I have both. I did them both. You know what I mean?
I've always been in that seat too. I'm just saying I'm starting to question the current landscape of social media and all the media, and, like, is it any different to put it on Instagram, to put, like, a minute edit on Instagram versus, like, a minute edit on YouTube? Or, like, I don't really know. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. Like, I'm curious what the future holds, because, like, as TikTok gets bigger and Instagram might get less interesting, like, I don't know. That to me makes YouTube make more sense, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the trick porn stuff doesn't, like, is going to do less and less good. Like, if just tricks with music, like, is going to do less and less good as the years go on. Like, people are so stupid, they want it explained to them. Like, all the good videos that do well on TikTok are, like, a dude's face fucking talking about something else that's in the background. And then also, like, that little video game with the thing falling off the cliff and stuff. Like, those are clips that do well.
On
you know
TikTok.
what I mean? On TikTok. I feel like that's just, like, we're going to keep going down that direction. So I don't know.
I feel like those only do well because those are really easy to pump out 1,000. And so you get 1,000
Volume.
of those versus one wakeboard edit. Like, one of those is going to hit. Like, they're just beating you based on the numbers.
That's a really good thought, actually. But I don't know. But I think that what does well on TikTok doesn't necessarily do well on Instagram.
What does well on TikTok definitely doesn't do well on Instagram.
Actually,
and
for a fact,
YouTube Shorts
Instagram
is
is
different too.
trying to prioritize different things. Like, Instagram's take is that they want to be a platform where you can bond with your friends over the things you care about. So, for example, like your other wakeboard friends, if you're sending them a wakeboard clip of like, this is crazy, this is sick, then they're going to keep feeding you more of that because they want people to connect over the things they enjoy together. That's not what TikTok is. If anything, TikTok's almost moving more towards like the quick YouTube, Google style stuff, you know?
Yeah, I think Instagram is the most community-based like social media platform that we have. So I think,
which is why I think all the wakeboarders stuck on Instagram, and why I think Instagram's like,
king.
Wakeboard
king.
clips do good on Instagram still.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I think we move on to some industry news. Noah Flegel is not on Hyperlite anymore. Ulf is on Hyperlite. Any comments?
I didn't know the Noah thing.
Well, I mean, he's not riding Hyperlite shit anymore.
There was no post.
There's no official post, but like,
Dude, you're the gossip king, dude.
yeah, dude.
Listen, my lane is cable on work, as well as what I mostly do. I do try to consume the other stuff.
Well, maybe he's not off Hyperlite, but
Okay, I can
But
break,
I got a lot
I can
of
break it
things.
down in simple terms. I think company,
it down for
company X was like, hey, you need to ride fully our stuff. And he was like, I don't know. I'm going to do this. Now he rides for company Y and Z at the same time.
This is what I expected,
And
considering
he picked up Armstrong foils and Mignana Surf. So
Yeah.
his wakeboard is actually Mignana Surf too, if you look at the bottom of it.
no way. Manana Surf's making wakeboards now.
Yeah, it's got a nice
Custom 101.
nice custom on the bottom. I think it's a smart move. It's definitely an interesting move, but I think if you're going cheddar wise, I think he got an increase
And I think he's big enough. Like, I don't think a lot of people can do that, but Noah Flegel can do that.
for sure. And it's interesting because you look at his stuff on Hyperlite, and he has 6 pro models. He's got multiple surfers, a wakeboard, boots, a handle, everything you could want.
He's kidded.
And then he got hooked up somewhere else. So
those are typically called head-to-toe deals.
He's never wearing a helmet, but yeah.
I mean,
Shoulder
but
down.
still,
I
like
know.
a hat, whatever. I mean, that's obviously a common thing you see in snowboarding. You don't see that a lot in other.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes in surfing.
Well,
too,
he
but-
wouldn't have left if it didn't make sense, right? Like, he would just stay with Hyperlite.
right.
Well, it made a lot of sense. I knew he was
Doesn't make
with.
dollars, doesn't make
I knew
sense.
it was with Armstrong, and it was interesting. I don't know if I saw him at Worlds with an Armstrong or something.
I just feel like
But-
he'd been riding Armstrong for a long time, and
That's
he
what
was
I
also on Hyperlite, and that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
One of them has to
Hyperlite-
give.
Hyperlite
Like,
makes foils as well.
yeah, so like one of them's got to give,
Yeah, it makes
I
sense.
think. So, interesting though.
It would be hard in the water sports landscape, the towed water sports landscape, to like have a head-to-toe sponsor. I think I don't know that anyone has the wide enough budget to make that work.
I think Sean Murray is probably one of the only ones that has it.
Jet pilot, right?
You're right. Never mind. Take it back.
He's not. I mean,
Whoops.
I know when I was on Joby, they want us to not have another wetsuit brand. They were like, and I think Hyperlite, I would imagine, is similar. But with people like Murray, I'm sure there's a compromise there. There's such a history there. But
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, Hyperlite does make vests, I think, and I would think they'd prefer.
Well, they all
people
have like pro
JB.
model vests, like most people do on Hyperlite. I'm pretty sure.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, like Graham has a vest.
JB has a vest.
No, JB's on Jet Pilot.
Well, I was gonna
Oh,
say
with
he has a
Jetpilot.
vest,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
was gonna say, is it with Hyperlite? I
It's
wasn't
with
sure.
Jetpilot, yeah,
I
yeah.
saw his post about it.
Side note, he has a 2025 pro model boat board now as well.
The Sender.
Indeed.
A little more industry news right there.
Right there.
It's a package board too, so he's raking in on that one. Good for him.
Royalties are such a profitable part of our industry.
Well, for him it is, dude. If you got a package board, those are units, dude.
With Hyperlite, yeah, maybe.
That's what I'm saying. That
that-
thing's going to Costco, dude.
Oh, Sam's Club, Costco,
Yeah,
it's
maybe.
in.
Yeah, with Hyperlite,
It's
that
a
would
Sender on the
It's doing numbers.
That's doing numbies, yeah, for
Is that
sure.
how you know you made it? You're in Costco.
Yeah.
Honestly, dude, yeah, I think so. Be sick. Board in
Hey, I
Costco.
got zero hate with wakeboarders making money.
Oh yeah, big facts.
Go make that money, JB.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking some of the wakeboarders who are doing the best right now, he's got to be up there on the list, I would imagine, right? We don't have hard numbers, but already guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is also another debate. We don't have to go down the rabbit hole, but like, he makes his money doing a lot of things. He's still a wakeboarder, but he also, almost every wakeboarder is though, maybe. Like, he's a content creator. He's like producing videos. Like, you know what I mean? But
Yeah, he's got that YouTube.
it's hard to
showing.
compare JB to someone who doesn't make YouTube videos because his work output is 10x other people's work output.
Yeah, dude, I was talking to I don't know if you guys know this guy. He's a wake surfer, and he's from like Minnesota or something. His name's Sam Study, whatever. He's like one of the viral wake surfers, and we were just chatting briefly the other day because I told him you should surf a 30 rack of beer because he does that shit where you like surf different stuff. He's like, I tried, it didn't work, but bummer. I was like, is this what you do like full time? And he's like, yeah, this is my full time job.
Did he surf the Lego board?
Yeah, he surfed the Lego board. He surfs with like, I don't know, ice skates on his feet, just like a glass board, aluminum board, all that shit. And he's like, yeah, this is what I do for a living. So it was interesting. I feel like you always assume those people do that for a living. Like he has 60,000 followers. I feel like his posts always go viral, and I guess he is doing it for a living. So Instagram money might be decent too. Didn't know.
However, the kid that films with his iPhone and does the tantrums does
Chase
not
Lock.
have a board sponsor.
Should he, John Dreiling?
This was a conversation we had at Worlds.
Should he, Gavin
It was super
Stuckey?
interesting.
Should he, Gavin Giglio?
I mean, I definitely think the board company should have sent him a free board. Like, that's the least.
That's a mistake on
dude.
their part.
Yes.
So if you guys don't know, he was riding a Ronix board, made a post about not getting a board sent, so he wrapped it and said no free promo. This guy's getting millions of views. I think at minimum you could have done is give him a free board and continue millions of eyes.
You know,
on your product.
you can hate on his 2 or 3 videos that were like cringe trendy, which was for views.
Like the sketch stuff, yeah.
However, the clip of him just carving in sunset butter with his hand in the water that is just dope to people who don't wakeboard. They just see that and they're like, that looks dope. I want to try that.
Yeah.
That's got to be so good for the sport. You know what I mean? Not all the like following the TikTok trends. They're probably not bad for the sport, but the most viral clips I feel like are the ones where he's putting his hand down, edging and butter
Definitely.
water.
He's got millions. I feel like you got some thoughts on this now.
I don't feel like any views wakeboarding are bad for the sport. Like if people are watching it, good. So people do whatever they want. I think the more clips, the better. I feel like if I was a board company, I'd have given him a board.
I feel like that's the new age of like sponsorship because I feel like I could be mistaken, but I think Burton does this where like Burton has their team, their pro team of like athletes. And then they definitely have a team of like influencers that are probably getting paid by Burton, that are getting Burton gear, but aren't like on the team. But it's this totally separate marketing push. And like I feel like this kid Chase falls into that situation where it's like you're not an athlete, you're not a pro rider. You're an ambassador. You're an influencer. Like
I want to give shout out to Ronix. We're play devil's advocate a bit, but like the fact that they didn't just like chase views necessarily, like, and they have some type of like morality or ethics to them. Like they did this for a reason, you know, like they wanted to show their riders, I believe. I mean, they didn't just say, oh, screw the free promotion, right? Like we could give this guy a board. It would obviously find like ROI wise probably be worth it. I think they did it for a passion play, not a business play. Like I don't think they were made a dumb business decision. You know what I mean? I think they looked at it strategically and said, okay, like we don't want to, like we're committed to the sport and to our riders, and we want to like make sure our riders know that we're committed to them. We're not committed to influence.
Is that a short-sighted view though? Because the long play out of that, what you could say is like we give this kid a board, more people come into the Ronix family.
I'm not pro Ronix necessarily or not. I'm saying that like we've been basically saying like why didn't they give him a board? Well, like maybe this is why. And like to be fair,
You think
like,
it was like a calculated thing of like
I
we
think
don't want-
Liquid and Hyperlite probably would have, but
Hyperlite
also
did give him a board.
Ronix. Okay,
Yeah.
exactly. Ronix doesn't sell in big box retailers for a reason. Like they are, you know, they're trying to keep it a certain way that I think most riders would hate on brands that don't do that, you know. And I think the times have changed, but I think it's kind of cool that they stuck by what they believe in a way of like being the way they are with their dealers, the way they are, you know, like they're going to go through certain shops. Like Brooks explained their online sales and those type of things. Like I think they do things a very intentional way, and it's more about doing things the way they believe is the right way. So, you know, maybe the kid should have got a free board, but I think it's fine. It's not Ronix and it's Hyperlite or whatever, but
I feel like an O'Brien would have been like a great play there, or like a Connolly kind of unit if Connolly was still around. But
it's just an interesting thing.
It's very interesting because this is going to continue to happen. Like that kind of kid's not going away. Like going viral and all that shit is like here to stay.
I feel like what you're saying is like that kid, the market that he was selling to, like the people who are watching him is not the people that Ronix is selling to. And so if that's the case, then like, yeah, it's not worth it for them to give him a board. It's worth it for O'Brien and someone else. And if a bunch of people come up and that's their kind of style and that's the people they want to sell to, that's fine.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely believe the fact that people were buying the board that Chase was riding because Chase was riding it, though. That's a fact. Like, there's definitely people commenting and messaging him being like, what board is that? I'm buying that board.
How many?
No idea. We'd have to ask Chase.
Okay.
More than the kids who don't post on Instagram, though, I can tell you that right now.
Yes, I don't disagree with that, but I'm saying it's rad that Paul O'Brien is standing by being for the wakeboarder, the pro wakeboarders.
No, and I'm not disagreeing.
That's been their identity.
Each brand
and I think
is
as a
thing.
brand, I think it makes sense to be their identity. It's not been Hyperlite's identity in my view of it, at least that's like my perspective. They sell in these big box stores, so it does make sense for them. That's on brand for them. I don't know. It's just it's interesting, but for riders that are, like a rider might look at Ronix and be like, well, if they start supporting all these influencers, they might be like, well, I see what's coming. This brand that doesn't, or vice versa. Like maybe people will see Hyperlite supporting influencers and be like, Ronix doesn't, and so I feel more safe with them.
I just don't think that there's that many people in the world who are going to look at it that specifically and be like, I'm not going to buy a board from that brand because they gave an influencer
I'm just
a board.
explaining
Yeah,
what I believe.
I know, I
Ronix
get
had
it.
some
And I
logic
think
to it.
it's fine. Like, I think all brands should do their own thing and should be different because if they're all the same, then it'd be fucking stupid anyway. So, like, they should all have their
But
own.
it doesn't like have to be one way or another. Like you don't have to be so hard one way that you ignore everyone else.
Yeah, I agree,
We should just run a wakeboard company, dude, and we'll have it all figured out.
But I'm just saying respect for Ronix for doing, I believe what the decision was made out of a logical, like it wasn't on accident. They didn't not notice the kid.
I think they told him if he landed T to B, he's got a board. So, like, I guess that one's on Chase. T to B, kid, you got it. He's got tantrums on lock, dude. Come on.
Yeah. Take the blind.
All right, I think we dive into the LF'n Wheel of Questions presented by Liquid Force.
The LF'n Wheel of Questions.
Okay, let's go.
So, Gavin, do you want to go ahead and grab that down? So, Liquid Force likes to make wakeboarding fun. So, let's make this podcast a little bit more fun by spinning the LF'n Wheel of Questions. I think you'll spin it, Gavin, and then we'll all answer. Yeah? So, that'll be depending on what it is, obviously.
Right here. Good.
Yeah, give it a good spin. Let's see what we got on here.
Sneaky easy trick.
Okay. I like this one. So we're all going to give our own answer. We don't really have to go in order, I guess. If somebody's got something they want to throw out there, I got to think about it for a second, but
Fake outs. Just in general, like if you're wrapped and then you unwind back one and you pass the handle, that means nothing. I think it's too easy. It looks maybe cool, but it's not hard. If you pass the handle and then spin,
that's where okay.
To me, it adds nothing in difficulty, but it's like style for a musician or something. You know what I mean? It's like your flavor. You can have your own flavor for your edit, but it didn't impress me more that you did it, you know?
yeah, it's sneaky easy. Like
Yeah.
it may be
completely
added
unnecessary,
style, but it's
yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
It's not like I look at that and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, you just up the difficulty level significantly. Okay. I like that one. I'm not ready yet, so I think.
All right. Well, then I think it adds negative style if you do a fake out.
So you hate
like,
the unnecessary handle
well,
pass.
it's totally unnecessary. Like if you're gonna pass the handle, might as well do it the same way too. Like I think it's better off just doing a pullback or the same way too.
Okay. Would you say that landing like mummy wrap or over wrap or whatever you want to call it is taking away style too?
I think if you pull with two hands, take one hand off, and then go mummy, it's completely unnecessary. I think some guys on boat, like Nano is doing cage 5, grabs the heck out of it, doesn't put the hand on the whole time, and lands mummy. And I think there's a purpose there. I think that's sick. I think if you're gonna go blind and then take the hand off to like rearrange your hands and go blind.
I agree. That's my point with that is like don't do it if you're not going to grab the shit out of your board because that's what it's allowing you to do is grab your board.
Yeah,
more.
it's like going wrapped. You
It's going
gotta
wrapped,
utilize it.
It's just the
same
back end
but
of
just
wrapped.
the unnecessary mummy.
I used to have this stance, but you know, kids get stoked when they do
Oh,
it
do whatever the hell you
differently.
want, dude. Nobody cares.
And I think that for me, it's like somewhat of a style thing. I do think it's like a Zeech in a way when you're like pulling with the hand and then last second you just kind of let go with the wrong hand. But you know, I don't do mummies in my riding, but if someone does like like nose press front three off a rail to mummy or something. It's not. I don't think it's that much harder.
To me, I'm just like, what's the point?
Yeah, I think some people
But
view
it's
it
like
as
a
adding
It's for fun,
difficulty.
yeah, I
in
guess.
it. It's not.
I think
it shouldn't be looked
I think
like
the
that.
problem is when people do fake outs or mummy and they're like, "Oh, look at how sick my trick was or how hard my trick was," and they try to play up like it's impressive they did it. I think if they just do it and it's their style and they have fun with it, and the vibe is that they're having fun with it in an edit or something, I think it's dope. But
Yeah.
I think it's acceptable, you know.
Okay.
Or if you have a reason for mummy, for example.
Well, if you grab and you land mummy, that's awesome. It's like if you do a wrap trick and you don't grab, it's like, well, why did you do it wrapped? I don't know. That's my stance at least. I mean, it makes it easier, right? I don't do wrap tricks. I ride the cable mostly, but
Yeah, I mean, the point of wrapping and why people made the wrap handle was to grab the board or grab it longer or grab it earlier or whatever the reason is, you know?
or to add another spin.
I could be wrong, but I don't think that's why people got a wrap handle.
I don't
But maybe
know
that's
why
why
they
people
made it.
use it today.
I have no idea. I don't know who even invented. Who was the first one?
But hey, if
That'd
you
be a
did
good
if you did
question.
wrap back 14, no grab, are you just like it doesn't count as a 14 now?
It definitely counts.
I don't know. Is it worth someone trying wrap back 14, or is it like
Sure,
you're gonna
hell
get
yeah,
hated
dude,
on
why
for
not?
it? Will it be a Bretta's thing, where everyone in the industry is like, yeah, but it was wrapped, like that's whack, you know?
Nah.
Definitely
If someone does
not,
wrap back
dude.
14, I'm not dissing them.
No way,
like that,
dude.
that's legit.
It's a 14, man.
Yeah, bro. what are we
14's a
talking-
14.
I mean,
I'm
sure, when
14.
someone does it without a handle pass, that'll be
Okay.
better. But
Yeah, it'll be more difficult.
Okay, but
and it'll be more
people do
impressive.
that on like a trick. You just said why wrap if you don't grab? Well, people
Yeah.
do that on other tricks, and it's only okay because
Yeah, but we're
it's a
talking
14 now?
1440, not a fucking 360 out of a rail.
Why is it okay now that it's a 14?
Because it's
What
never been done
changes?
before, dude. It's like
Okay, so
it's-
you can only do it once the time it's an NBD, and then you can't do it anymore.
Don't poke holes in my argument here. I feel like it's right. I don't know.
Well,
Someone
I
back
also
me up
think
here.
wrap doesn't really apply to cable like it does boat and trying to cross it over.
Yeah.
Like no one on cable is going to go to a wrap 14.
I'm talking on cable. I'm talking if some
Well,
kid
yeah,
went and
Gunther did what? Wrap back 10, right? For
On
this
boat.
real leg part.
on boat.
Yeah, and I feel like that's totally different than like.
Totally
Okay, like
different.
on cable, not on boat. If you do wrap back 14 on boat,
That's what I
you're
thought you were
off your
talking
face.
about.
That's toady.
No, if you did if you did it on a kicker or something.
I don't know. I don't think you should wrap up on the cable. TBH.
Yeah, if there's no wrap handle, then.
But that's
what
why
are
it's
you
an
doing?
interesting question. If you do wrap back 14, I mean, what happens?
I don't,
is
I
it
don't
like,
think,
oh, you did the
I don't
first 14?
think this is going to be an issue. I don't think anyone
No one's gonna
who's
do it.
good enough to do a 14 is going to think wrapping it up is
Sorry,
gonna
I
be
like
easy.
having pointless conversations.
Like
But,
when
okay.
Busty Dunn does his 14, he's not wrapping it up. Just saying.
My sneaky easy trick is probably still an underflip.
Can you explain what an underflip is for the people who don't know what an underflip is?
Well, if you're a snowboarder, it's a half cab roll, a roll to reverse. But if you're a wakeboarder, it's when you come in wrapped and do a wrap blind Pete, who some people seem to, that's what it is when you do like a toe side Moby Dick wrapped. But typically people pre-spin it and flip at the kicker or back if you're on the wake, back towards the wake you left from, or if you're on the cable, back towards the cable. So your toe side wrapped. You could do it like a toe-sided Moby Dick wrapped. You could do it like a, you don't have to wrap. Sorry, you can pass on the kicker, which is essentially just wrapping up before you leave the kicker, and then turning and like doing or you can do a pre-spin of 180 and do like a mexi roll to revert.
Okay.
What if you take it to blind?
The rewind. That's actually what I would probably say is my sneaky easy trick
That's what you
because
originally went with.
that's what I think before we started this because like I think people understand an underflip's easy, but especially if you're pre-spinning it like underflip roll, it's just like a roll to blind. If you come and switch, pass on the kicker, your shoulders are completely turned. I'm not saying it shouldn't be done. I'm just saying it's sneaky easy. I think people expect it to get scored good. My thing is I'm judging a contest and someone does it thinking it's going to get scored well, and I'm like, but it's really not that hard. Someone does a back nine, okay, like that beats your underflip rewind.
Back nine's the best trick in wakeboarding, so yeah, that makes sense.
And I think people are trying to sneak by saying like, oh, like this trick looks crazy, but it's sneaky easy.
Okay.
Yeah, I can get behind that one. You kind of just unwind. Does
That's like
itself.
wrapped KGB.
Yeah,
but
my sneaky easy trick, kind of an extension of that. I think it's any early pass mob or wrapped mob. Like you kind of once you get the handle, or if you're wrapped, you already have the handle, you kind of just unwind and you're along for the ride.
Yeah, the only reason we didn't see him more in the past was it's scarier to do that than to do a chromo. Like, it's more unknown feeling, but doing a Moby Dick, it's like once you get the handle.
Yeah. All right. Good. I don't have any easy tricks. I was gonna say switchback lip, but then that doesn't sound as cool with all the fucking flippy spinny shit you guys are talking about.
I don't think that's sneaky easy.
I thought it was, dude. I don't know. Maybe I've just done a lot of them. But
Nah, you're tripping. No
I'm
one
tripping?
I've ever coached was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go learn switchback lip. That sounds easy.
I just feel like switchback 50 is so easy. And it's just like, okay, just go a little bit more. All right, wrong.
Not if you're like talking like transfer, like legit,
Yeah,
like
I
have
mean-
to get up and over back lip or ollie onto like a meter high rail or something. And I don't think it's I agree that like we all in this room, I know for a fact, like we're very intentional about riding switch more. But I think that most people I've ever coached or seen in a contest, and they're like, what do I do to make my run better? Okay, hot take, every single run should have like if you're planning a run, this isn't a hot take, but I should have to write down switchback lip. I think like you should do a toe 270, you should land in that or switch front board, because it's just kind of a trick I teach everyone who asks me a question, but it's like it forces the judge to know you had composition, and it's also something that we never write down. Like no one does it. They'll do switch 50 all day, but like you just don't see it. It's just very obvious that, and you tell a kid that, the amount of kids I told that, and they have a day before the contest and they can't figure out how to get in their run because they're not good enough at it. It's pretty mind blowing.
Okay. I was gonna say toeback 7, but that's been beat like a dead horse. So I feel like toeback 5 falls in there too for me. I feel like that's a pretty easy one. Sneaky easy. Maybe not. Maybe I just am wrong on these.
No, I think.
You think toeback 5?
What do you think?
I think toeback in general
Yeah.
falls into
I just think that's like really easy.
Yeah, like I'd say in the learning process, it's probably the last 360 you learn. But once you learn it, it's pretty.
Well, the trick is done once you go off the kicker, like toeback 3. That's like you can pass the handle on the kicker. Trick's over.
There was a period in basically features only comps back in the day where it was like hardest trick on each rail wins, and it was like obvious, like there was almost in our minds and in judges' mind, it was like points, like okay, toe back 3 was beating heel back 3, like it was obvious what tricks beat what. Toe front 3 beat heel front 3 transfers and stuff, you know, and like literally I just went and learned switch toe back 3, reg toe back 3 transfer, and it got me to so many finals because judges like thought. Like, because again, it's like one of the last toe back 3s. It was crazy how the mindset changes, you know? Like, no one does it because they think it's going to be hard. They don't spend the time learning it. It's actually the easiest thing. It's like a board side transfer on every rail, and then it gets scored super high. Now it's the opposite. It's like, oh, it's easy. Now heel back or whatever gets scored so high. Just so interesting how things change.
We got a LF'n wild card from the boys and girls, the crew at Liquid Force. Little bonus here. So they want to know the most underrated trick. So we basically did the most overrated trick right there, but I feel like underrated trick is on the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
Something that maybe doesn't, that I feel like Gavin would put it this way, something that should get scored higher than it does. Gavin Stuckey. Gavin Stuckey would put it that way.
Well, that trick is a blind Pete.
Yes, 100%.
That's exactly where my mind went to.
Because
on a kicker
we're all on
hit,
the same.
It is the
It's a
only
blind Pete.
it's the only trick that you can subtract a 180 from and the score goes up, I think. Because seatbelt mode 5 and blind Pete are same trick, but blind Pete is a million times harder.
Yeah. I also think, well, I have a rail trick, but I think on kickers that's pretty obvious.
It's also endless. I think it looks so good. Like even when Danny Harf did it 20 years
It
ago,
looks so
and then when
good,
you do it
dude.
now, it still looks so good.
Yeah.
And if you did it to 5, like, first of all, Trent does this in contests and doesn't get scored well enough. He did this in Embley, you know, and people were like, yeah, it's like a Mo 5, but less 180. I'm like, are you joking? No, it's not like a Mo 5 at all. So it's so much harder. But yeah, he did that off like the whoop thing. It was crazy. Anyways, Trent does this in contests sometimes.
I think he's the only rider on cable that does it like pretty regularly.
Like in a contest run for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't even think of seeing someone do a really good one. I think maybe I've seen Pedro do it, but it wouldn't be like a consistent one. Yeah. I mean, maybe he has it, but not pulling on a contest. I wonder if Loey could do it because he is like really good indie Moby Dicks and stuff. I don't know if I've seen him do it either.
It's pretty hard.
Okay, my trick is a early pass back tail transfer onto a rail or ollie.
Okay.
So where you go, like how people go front nose and pass early and then turn into a like back tail position, but you would go back tail and go and turn into like a front nose position.
And like stop rotating, right?
Yeah, and stop
Okay.
rotating.
I'm gonna go switchback lip. I was proven wrong. Switchback lip underrated. I just love it.
Well, I think if more people were intentional from the beginning at riding switch,
Yeah.
it'd be less.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else that I feel like is underscored as a judge. I think like everyone tends to overlook like the early grab mob. Like doing tail KGB is just so much harder than a KGB, and every
Indie
single
Moby
Grom
Dick.
Yeah.
overlooks like the difference in difficulty.
I mean, yeah,
That's a
it's,
good point.
it's the same as the blind Pete, basically. Like we're talking,
Yeah.
obviously not underflip, but actual blind Pete. But like if you do Indie Moby Dick too, I think I've seen that get scored in MASH too low, and I'm like, it's weird to me, you know. But
I feel like Gunther does a lot of grab then pass mobs, like specifically for that reason. Could be wrong. That's what I'm picturing.
I think we're talking specifically not Mo 5. So
No,
not,
I
like, not
mean-
like Mute Mo 5, but like
Yeah.
tail KGB and stuff. Indie
Yeah,
Moby
yeah.
Dick.
I was thinking
I mean,
like indie
Gunther-
Dick, tail KGB.
Gunther has them. I've seen him do
Yeah,
all
yeah.
of them, but I don't see him do them in events too much.
He does P5, which is essentially the same thing.
But I was saying I think the problem is when you don't go 5, people are like, it's just a KGB. It's like, okay, but it's not just a KGB. It's a completely different trick.
Okay, so like nose Pete 5, tail KGB. What do you think?
Like what scores higher?
Yeah. Because like the Pete 5 is more spinning, but I think the early
I don't
grab
like.
on
I
the
think
KGB.
I think KGB.
Mob 5.
P5.
You're saying P5?
Yeah.
I don't know. I do both tricks, but I learned the P5 so much earlier that the KGB felt so much easier. But I would say that the reason I score the P5 higher is because it's so much harder to get the height on a P5. So like say you're on a large kicker, it's definitely P5. If you're on an XL, it starts getting questionable. But I think the P5 you have to be pretty disciplined to not go early in on a KGBU. Also, Gavin can do both tricks too, I think.
I agree. I think I'd take Pete 5, but then I think if you go the other way and you go Mute Crow 5 versus Indie Moby Dick, I go Indie Moby Dick.
Yeah, because that trick, it's hard to, like, your momentum's hard to carry, where the Crow 5, it carries it for
Well,
you.
you have like with the grain against the grain style tricks, like rodeo style tricks versus like cork style tricks and stuff. So it's like when you think about a KGB, it's kind of like this is gonna maybe trip people out. Hopefully you guys follow, but it's kind of like a Olay front 3 to handle pass back 3, as opposed to when you do Indie Moby Dick, it's like Olay back 3 to handle pass back 3. So you can't do both simultaneously. So when you do the like Chromo is a better example than Pete. Like Pete, you can flip and spin at the same time. On a Chromo, you're kind of going out and around the same axis or same direction, if that makes sense. So they can't happen kind of simultaneously. So it's more like a 7. It takes longer to happen than say a roll to blind, where you can you're on different axes. So
I don't know about you guys, but I'm lost.
I'm gonna sit this one out. I ain't
yeah.
doing Mob 5s anyway, so like,
physics
I just
whatever,
am Pete 5'd out, so that's why I want KGB. But
it's the same with rodeos. It's the same. It's the same. A double Todio 10 is way harder than a double cork 10. It's the same thing. It doesn't just relate to the rope, but with the rope, it can be thought of more as like a scarecrow can be thought of as an Ole 5, right? So Chromob is, in some way, if you had to break it down to flatten everything out to one dimension, it'd be like an Ole 7. How snowboarding counts all flips and spins. Well, when you're like doing a KGB, your flip and spin are on different ways, so you can actually have them happen they're on two like perpendicular axes more than a parallel axis.
Okay, I kind of understand what you're saying, because with the rope, you gotta rotate differently. So, with that being said, I get you, but I'm gonna play my Uno skip card here.
Okay. This is the coach, John, coming out.
Uno double reverse. All right, let's put this LF'n wheel questions back. So thank you to Liquid Force for that. Went down some trick rabbit holes there. Let's do trivia. So you got one for me, right, John? You got a trivia question for me.
Oh yeah.
So
I got you.
I'll give one to Gavin, and then I'll give one to you, and then I'll give one to Stuckey as well, and then you can end it with me, and I can get it wrong. First one to do is 0. Gavin Giglio.
Can we go on?
Yeah,
This
you
makes
picked
me
the wrong guy.
You picked it. Well, first of all,
You should know this.
0 is slang to me because 0 is not really.
You mean front 3, back 3?
Yeah, you have to clarify. There's back 3, front 3, front 3, back 3, toe back 1, back 1. Okay, but
Is there another one of those, Gavin? Can I have one?
you mean front 3, back 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was wrapped, but whatever. I don't remember.
I feel like it's wrong, but the first one I can remember is Mossy.
Don't answer.
He just got it right, so shut the fuck up.
No.
Hey.
No.
Yeah.
Well, you counting Cable?
No.
I wasn't even
Christopher
thinking
Klein
cable.
on Cable.
Yeah.
Cable's practice,
Tom
dude.
Matthews did it first.
On Cable?
Yeah, well, I had no chance. of knowing that.
2013 or something. It was posted on Instagram, maybe 2014.
According to the wakeboardsite.com, it was that. So, and that's the only form of. the
Well,
only
Tom
form
wasn't
of
a pro,
thing we have,
But
so.
it was posted. It was filmed. But it wasn't on boat. Mossy's is obvious because he's the one who named it the 0.
Yeah, what was the edit called that he did that? That one should have been
Pizza
on
Boy?
Yeah, the Mossy had a couple edits.
Yeah,
that could
it
go on
ends with the G spot at Lake Roanoke. The double G spot where he like kind of rides away, but he doesn't.
Man, I didn't even think about that.
That one. Yeah.
I used to watch that a lot, but the color grade is, no offense, I'm not gonna say
Sounds nerdy.
it was not good. So I can't. It bugs me now as like
It's
having
artsy,
filmed.
dude. This is an artsy vibe.
Well, it was good for the it was a oversaturated type style back then, but now it's a little cringy. But it worked back then. I thought it was sick back then.
All right, Johnny D. What was the song that was used in Josh Twilker's part in Scumline? You should absolutely know this.
The fact that I have to come up with the name though is so much harder than the
okay,
other way
what's
around.
the band?
That is tough.
Name the band. If you don't name the band, this is a terrible look.
Again, you
And you'll see why once I explain it. Once I explain it, you'll see why.
Stuff and makes it hard, you know.
Wouldn't
Dude,
want to be that guy.
Scumline came out in like 2 years ago.
That makes it almost harder.
Okay.
I've seen Scumline at least 4 times all the way through, but it's still more recent stuff you don't watch as much.
Those are rookie numbers, John. You got to
You gotta pump those up.
But that's what I'm saying.
You got to get that up.
Twice before 9 a.m.
Busy now.
I mean, you got to guess.
Dude, it's not gonna
You
happen.
want me to give you a hint? That's going to be like.
I can't even think
Think
of
of your board graphic for the 2024 season.
Oh,
Okay.
that's a good hint.
That's why he should know it.
Well, if he's not repeating, he can't use time. It's a Pink Floyd song.
Correct. It's The Machine.
Okay, well, I don't know.
I'm not going to say it's a bad look for you. It's a bad look.
No
for you.
offense, Josh. I don't really remember that part because
It's so good.
his part in the edit Gavin said is so good, and his part in Dog Days is so good that it's like to me that's peak Josh Twilker in my mind. Not that his writing's worse now, but that like that was revolutionary at that time, and so it just holds much more in my memories.
Yep, keep trying to save yourself.
Yeah, Gavin Giglio 1 for 1. Johnny D 0 for 1. All right, you're not going to get this then, I guess, Gavin. But who were the riders in Quiet Please that had full parts?
Oh yeah. Put me on a boat one.
No, dude, that's not fully boat here.
Did Ollie Theron have
Correct, that's one. If you can get 3, I'll give you the.
Well, does Vandal have a full?
He does. I mentioned it earlier, so that's it.
12 or 2, right?
Yep.
That's all I got.
In Quiet Please.
Yeah. It's pretty good. See if you can
There's
guess.
probably
See if you
some
can guess one more.
old names though.
See if you can guess one more. I mean,
Derek Cook.
he's got clips. He doesn't have a part.
Okay. I gotta think. I gotta go deep, dude. I don't know.
Think Australian.
Australia.
Australian and Canadian. Two different people. Somebody who we didn't mention earlier that should have definitely been mentioned when it came to edits. Aaron Rathy.
Yeah, I thought
Dang.
he had a part.
He's got edits.
So Rockstar like bought that XL kicker and it was like Rockstar owned, and that's the one that ended up at Valdosta. Fun fact, they bought it like for that movie.
Really?
Pretty sure, yeah. So like Rathy had that kicker and he was like he tried to use that winch spots. I think it might be used at a winch spot in the movie or in another part.
He's in his backyard. So.
And then it was.
And then Dean Smith and Trevor Maurer. So they were
Dino.
technically 6 part. Yeah.
Okay.
You're Aussie.
Did Shredtown have clips in it on that flat bar with the wall painted or whatever with Ollie, like around Ollie's part? Or is that a different film?
No, they didn't have clips, but he had clips at Treadtown.
It's probably Lip Smack. I'm thinking. It's Lip Smack. I'm thinking of.
No, that was like 2 years prior, 3 years prior, something like that. I haven't watched Lip Smack in a long time.
I mixed the two up. I mean, not really. Like I know it's all slingshot on Lip Smack, but
Yeah.
just that session because it's on like a lake and it kind of reminded me of the XL.
What do you got for me?
Who won the first plastic playgrounds?
Oh,
Come on.
See, I think this is easy, but it's like none of the.
What year was it?
World's new 2014.
14.
Yeah.
I was
I have
worried
a
it'd be
guess,
too
but
old.
now I'm second guessing my guess.
it's interesting in wakeboarding history for a couple reasons, which is why I think it's a good question and people.
Oh, then it's probably not. The
No,
guess
what's
that
your
I was
guess?
thinking of. Well, I don't.
It's not that interesting in wakeboarding.
Realistically, there's like 2 names.
Yeah, there's only 2, and
Well, I'm just
most
thinking
people
who was
guess
hot
the
right
wrong
then.
name.
Windsor was pretty hot at that time period.
Who else?
Is that before Aaron Gunn's time?
I mean, yeah, technically,
was-
he didn't even
Then
compete in
I
2014.
don't know. Windsor would have been my guess.
Okay, boys, who is it?
You don't know.
Yo, in all
I should have
seriousness.
guessed. Yeah.
A lot of people have Yanel or Graham. Graham got second, and it was the first plastic playgrounds, which is interesting because it's like kind
That
of
is
a big
interesting.
deal, and like that's the start of a huge era or whatever. And then it was Yanel got the call a week before because he won nationals doing a heel 12 on BSO's kicker. And then they like called him up, and that was the first contest he won was nationals. They called him up. He went to plastics, and then he won plastics like a week later,
Hometown hero.
and then kind of threw in the towel pretty quickly after that.
All right, that's a good one.
But yeah, it's
Yeah, I wouldn't. That was before my time, so I didn't know. So I stumbled across this board. It's called the Friday, I believe, is how you would pronounce this. But I think I saw it on Reddit. But they're claiming
I'm buying.
you
it.
can hit some features on this unit, and so I'm very curious on
Wait, so it's like an
on the
e-foil.
squad's thought. I just don't understand how A, it's propelled, but B, how you could propel it and then hit a rail and then keep going.
It's got like the little jet on the one end.
So where does the slider base come into play here? Oh, here we go.
Yeah, well, that would be how.
What do you think of that rocker right there, Gavin?
That would be how you can hit a rail, I guess.
The nose press.
Get some
would be
mean
crazy.
presses on that unit, dude.
That thing is sinking.
Dude,
I
that
don't
would.
know. I've never seen one in the wild.
Dude, just board sliding Nico would be such a challenge because now you have like curve one way and curve the other way.
I don't know, but in the photo he had goggles on.
I
so
did see that. I was
support
trying to
it.
get a better pick of the goggles. That's what I was.
support. Those are some
man.
gnarly boots. Does
Did
it
I say
come with the
we
boots?
wake? Wait, go back up. Did I
Yeah,
say
are you sure it's not
we
just to, like,
wake like
You
the
play Wii
Nintendo
like, sports
games?
No, this is real, dude. This is the real deal. This is the future right here. Battery, symmetrical drive. So you can go both ways, switch and regular, goofy and
Well, if not, it's
thin
a
and light.
surfboard.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would love to ride one of these things, but it's I'm very curious on.
But wait, is it a wakeboard? If you're
It's a wakeboard.
26 pounds?
No,
All right, for the listeners, we're
But
looking
why
at
is it not a surfboard?
electrically propelled wakeboard. It's a wakeboard. That's not a surfboard.
but why?
What do you mean?
I mean,
Jet
what
surf already
makes
exists.
wakeboard and surfboards different?
It's the shape.
It's
That-
it
that-
says
that could be
symmetrical
true.
drive.
Just saying.
Yeah. Max
Oh,
speed 28
yeah,
miles an hour.
but then you're like saying that the one directional space mod board or the directional space
That's
mod board is now a surfboard because it's not symmetrical.
Yeah, because it's got huge.
You're not
fins.
being towed on this thing.
It's got
You're right. I don't know.
a nice thruster set in the back too on that space rover.
My questions are always the most pointless questions you could think of.
Well, my questions are always just show me a video of you using it. So this doesn't exist.
Well, might
this
as
is
well
one of
just
those.
pre-order it.
This is one of those pre-order things. Notify me. So I don't know. I was curious on this, but it's just a.
I mean, wait, go up. This is clearly someone who has a hand on their hand, photoshopped out of the handle. Right?
Oh, I didn't even notice the Photoshop. You're right. Does.
No, that's legit.
Well, they could have just let go of the handle.
There's no one's doing a front blunt. I say that on purpose, but with pretending the handle's in the hand.
Okay, I'm curious on the wakeboarders in the room. Can you blunt slide and tail slide?
You can get pitted. I don't know if you can call it a blunt. There's no without the trucks. It's hard to say. Like you can go,
Breaker, shout out.
you can go outside of the boots, but
Okay, listen, I don't care what you call it, but the point of trick names is so we can communicate, so we can like function as a.
Hit me with a yes or
Industry?
no before the explanation.
For now, I'm calling it a blunt, and
So
I
you
will
can blunt
continue to
on
call it a
wakeboard.
blunt until someone gives me or spliff. The twins and me compromised on spliff because I don't give a crap what it's called.
oh, you weren't even there when we came up with that name.
What do you
The
mean?
pinch?
Dude, we came up with that at Lake Ronix.
Oh well, then
No,
they.
I was there for that
Yeah,
too.
you
and it
were
was
there
not
too
at the
at,
lake.
like-
No, because it was when John was doing it on the pool.
I was
gap.
there.
You were like pinching the
First
side
of
the
all,
pool gap.
that's not what I call a blunt. I
Is
call
that
that
not
a
what you're
pinch.
talking about?
However, no. Maybe they made it up there and then came back and told me it later, like without telling me that they had already talked about it. But we had a conversation, and I'm gonna continue to call it a blunt because you need to give me something to call it. I'm not gonna
That's
watch
called a front
someone.
board.
It was
I'm
in
not going to do it.
Chicago.
I'm not going to continue. Yeah.
It was in Chicago. When
Chicago.
we all went to
Yeah.
Chicago. That's when we made it up.
I'm not.
But yeah.
I'm not gonna call it. Look, let's call it a freaking spliff. I'm down, but I'm not gonna call it a front board on the tail when I'm writing down tricks, when I'm judging, when I'm communicating with you, when I'm trying to explain. Did you see this thing that this person did or whatever? And you don't have to be blunted like nose lifted up for me to call it a blunt. You just can't be dipped below the rail. Like if you in skateboarding you do a back three over a rail and you catch what is your nose coming in, they call it back three nose blunt, regardless whether your trucks make contact or not. You could call it a soggy nose blunt. They call it a blunt in snowboarding. The point is, like, I need something I use it so regularly, whether it's judging, communicating, filming, whatever. I'm trying to tell Gavin, oh, go try this trick I'm filming. You need to get more blunted or whatever. Like, I don't mean get more on the corner of the rail. I mean get more on your tail. And it's just such an easier way to say all of those things. So if you just give me a word, but I don't think we should call all three of them a back. I literally called that creeper thing. I just said back nose to back tail. If I'm going to call it a back nose, I need to have a blunt word for it. And also you cannot call back nose blunt a back nose, because a back nose is a back board on your nose. You know
I think you're wrong. It's just a front board, but I digress.
Well, you can call it all a front board.
That's what it is.
You just can't call a front nose then.
Yeah,
if someone
I
goes on
agree.
a creeper and does a front nose, what do you call that?
Front board.
Front board on the creeper
You're
on
going
your
front board.
nose.
Yeah. No, it's just front board.
To me, that's the same thing as saying, oh, screw KGB. It's politically incorrect, whatever, because you could say that, but like I'm not going to say, he did a back roll, back three. Like that's what you're doing. You're describing
No, I'm
the
not.
trick.
No, I'm not. Because
That's not
if you're taking skating, is where this all comes from. Where you actually have a definitive point on the board.
But your front board,
that
you have to get
separates it.
up and over your truck still.
But you don't.
Whereas a front nose, you don't have to get up and over a truck.
That's the point. There is no thing there. You're just front boarding on a different part of the board because there is no thing there.
That's fine. You can have that stance. I'm saying you just can't call something like a back tail and then say you can't blunt. You have to be one way or another or give it a different name in my
Yeah, I'm
opinion.
all the way in the same way. And I feel like people were saying that snowboarding in the same way. Like you can't blunt slide on a snowboard either. Technically, if you want to get fully technical. Yeah.
Depends what region you are, because a lot of people in snowboarding still call it blunts.
Well, and I'm saying they're wrong. I'm just saying that like that's fine. But if you don't have the trucks, you can't do these tricks. But you can call them whatever you want. It's fun. I get it. But that's my point. It's black and white. I'm just saying there's no gray area here. Like if it's actually what you're calling the trick, it's the trick. It's
There's a lot of dumb names in wakeboarding, but I think it's better that we have a name for
I also don't think it
these
matters.
body positions. And like being a backlip on your nose, like that's such an iconic thing. That's like, why not call a method a melon?
Because it's a different trick.
Yeah, same with when Trent Stuckey goes and ollies onto the handrail at Liquid Leisure and does a backflip on his nose and he's like on an inch of the board. That's not a back. It's a different trick. You
Okay.
can do it proper. To me, it's a different trick. I'm not thinking of it the same. I don't think the approach is the same. I don't think your tension, your body position, I don't find anything similar about the trick except for the fact that you're backwards on a rail. Your hips are in a different spot on your nose and on your
I just think it
tail.
would have to have a different
Your
name
handle's
then
in a
if you're
different
gonna
spot.
if you're going to call it something. Because like the blunt slide is
That's fine.
involving trucks. So I don't know.
we just
I
call it
also
split?
don't think it really matters. And I feel like it's also not something that's ever going to change. Like
I didn't bring up
snowboarders
the
call it
question.
front blunt. We call it front blunt. I was just curious. There we go.
I feel like it might be to a fault, but I feel like you have to have some kind of meaning or logic. It has to at least make sense in communication with humans about our sport.
I mean, I guess I could just destroy my own argument by saying that tail press and nose press doesn't exist in that same vein.
50-50.
50-50 where you're leaning forward.
50-50, exactly. Same with 50.
So there we go.
50-50
Never
is
ending.
also a grind. You're basically saying any grind. First, that's another argument. It's called a blunt slide. Everything on skateboarding on your wood is called a slide. Everything on your trucks is called a grind. Feeble grind, Smith grind. It's called a blunt slide. It's about you sliding. You could say on the wheels, you could say on the wood, but you can't say on the trucks. That's not why it's called a slide. It was invented because you have to get up and over the trucks, but you're on the wood. And my take is you actually shouldn't be able to say 50-50. You should have a different name for that because we're not grinding anything.
Yeah, but then it's like, yeah.
I mean, it's a 50-50 slide.
But if you're just
in
trying
my
to
mind.
communicate what you're doing, I think we just stick with what we've been doing, which is fine. Which is blunt
Yeah, I'm
slide,
gonna continue
50-50,
saying
nose press, all
blunt.
that stuff. It's all
And
that.
back nose
Okay, yeah.
and back nose blunt.
So
That's what I'm
Gavin,
gonna say.
Gavin, you want to talk about Ulf before we moved on because we touched on Noah, but we didn't touch on Ulf really.
Yeah, I think it was a smart move for him to branch off. I think we just passed over, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts.
It was a smart move on Ulf's part
Yeah.
to like, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's smart on Hyperlite too, but
Yeah.
I just think it's a really cool thing to see, brands have a brand identity with a team. So I think Ulf makes so much sense for Hyperlite, and they continue on this like brand identity thing, you know? And I go back and forth still on whether business-wise it's good, but like in skating, it's kind of that way. Like Zero has a vibe to Zero, you know? And I think that Slingshot has a vibe to Slingshot. Hyperlite has a vibe to Hyperlite. And I think picking up Ulf was just a cool move. I was like, oh, dang, that's sick. That's such Hyperlite, you know?
I actually kind of disagree with that. I think Hyperlite's whole MO was content creators for a long time with JB, Coney Honeycutt, Graham's main
Trevor
thing is
still content too.
Trevor being TM. And I think Ulf is them kind of going away from that path, or else you would have seen Thomas on a Hyperlite board.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
okay, I agree with that, but I still think Hyperlite's thing with like, I still feel like they have this approach still. There was always this underlying Graham, Pedro, like this. They went for one or the other. It almost felt like there was conflicting, maybe two people in the business looking for two different things. But I think since Trev took over, it's becoming still kind of this edits matter, content matters, but like still full parts matter. And like, I mean, Ulf is still is big on social media, you know, but it's not a contest focus. You know what I mean? Like it still has its place to me. You can tell me a rider and I can tell you who I think they fit on, whether they fit on Ronex, Slingshot, Liquid Force, or Hyperlite. And I think Liquid Force is the contest kind of brand in a way. They look for like goats, they're like a Burton, and I think Hyperlite is like they don't really care at all about contests. You could say the same thing about Slingshot, but it's very clearly different types of people on each one.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely do have their own vision, I guess you could say, of like what their team's going to look like, which I think is really cool.
If there were more brands.
And that's why I wish like Connolly and O'Brien were still like more focused into this thing, because then you have two more like bigger pieces of the puzzle that are trying to push their team and their like vision for the sport in their own direction.
Well, if you had more brands, then you would probably have the content creators and the Ulfs different, you know? But right now you don't, but I don't know. I think
Thomas Herman, what brand is he on?
Well, to me, he still fits Hyperlite. But
you think he would?
But they only have so much budget, and I do think Ulf. This is a really good conversation. Like, if each one of us were a team manager, would we have made the same decision between Ulf and Thomas? Because they had to make this decision, right? And like their approaches is completely different.
I mean, was this even a decision? Was there a battle where it was like they were thinking about both of them? I don't know that.
I mean, if you have budget and you're a team manager, how do you not?
You're looking at
how do you not think about both of them?
Don't have like behind a board brand.
Whether they thought about Thomas for 30 seconds and said it doesn't fit what we're looking for at the moment, you know, like there's so many factors too. I know that Hyperlite was very intentional about like regions. So like the Pedro, like they made an offer to Joe. Like there was very intentional. Like we want a Canadian person with Nicola Duke. We want South America. We want like England, you know, and they went after people in those regions. So I don't know. Maybe they literally looked at it and said, wow, we want someone else in this region. This region's popping off, you know? Or maybe they just, I don't think that was the case with Ulf, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know what was in their mind, but I imagine they looked at both and considered.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they do have a lot of content creators. They do have a lot of Americans, you know?
Where does Ronex fit? I mean, in your guys' eyes, because you kind of did describe, I feel like the brand's decently well, but so where does Ronex stand in terms of like what they're building their team around? Vibes?
They're the Slingshot of boat. Meaning, like, I feel like they're a boat brand that has a cable rider. Like Slingshot had Tony. I feel it's changing.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
It's changing a lot. I mean, they are very much, like, to them, their identity is being a, like, rider's brand in a way. Like, you know, keeping it core to the shops, keeping, like, not trying to go too mainstream, trying to keep product high-end and really nice so they can continue to pay right. Like, their business approaches are completely different from Hyperlite and Liquid Force and Ronex. Like, night and day, pretty much. You know, it's like conservative and liberal, you know, like in the differences. And so I think that plays into when they pick up riders. You know, they definitely want riders who like are willing to put in work, that are more than just a wakeboarder, that are like family, that are gonna like put out, like, when I say family, I don't necessarily mean like, oh, you're family, that's cool. I mean like they want the relationship with the rider, like the rider will, you know, shit hits the fan, they expect riders to come to the table and be like, how are we going to fix this as a crew? You know what I mean? Like if a hurricane hit, they'd expect all the riders to come fix Lake Ronix. If something happened with a brand or a shop, and you know what I'm saying? Like they'd involve riders more in that.
They're more tight knit than other teams. It seems like
not necessarily tight knit. It's like
I think so.
If they could be, that's not the way I'm using the word family, I guess. But yes, they see you being in the company.
I mean, I would say if the hurricane hits, you got to be pretty fucking tight knit to go help rebuild one of the things.
That's fair, yeah.
You got your own house probably that you got to worry about too.
I guess so. But I mean, you disagree that that's what riders would do and kind of be expected? And
yeah, I'm not saying that I disagree.
And like Jake Pilat's
that's very
a perfect example because he
like Ronix to me. It's like once you're in,
Danny
you're in for like a while.
Yeah, and Danny Harf, Jake Pilat, but they look for those guys like. Liquid Force looks for the young goat. Finn, Sam. There was another one. They did like 3 pro models. Loic. They went and found these guys are our best bet on who's going to be the next goat, and we're going to invest in those young guys. That's like a Burton style way of looking at athletes. Lake Ronix is like who's going to show up for us? Who's got our back? Who can we trust? Who you know? And I would believe that the riders would say that the relationship was a two-way street. But I'm just saying that's what it appears from the outside is that, like, you know, all the riders on the team seem like they do anything for us. They're also good at boat shows. They're good at, like, all these very specific, you know.
Yeah.
They
I feel like
could see
the Ronix relationship is you're more of like an employee for Ronix, and then a lot of the other brands, it's like you're a rider for that brand.
Exactly. Yeah. And like they see,
which is fine. There's nothing wrong with any of that.
And when I say family, is like it's you're in for life kind of thing. Like, oh, if we get you, we want to make sure you also can work your way into a business role for most people, not everyone.
All right, let's talk events.
Wait, does anyone disagree with me on any of them?
Ronix is definitely the hardest to depict their kind of image, but I'd say you can definitely be expected to wear more than one hat if you're on their team.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a better way probably to word it. But.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, you would probably know better than anyone. I mean, you're tied with Trent, obviously, and you were in with Ronix for a long time, but yeah, interesting. Definitely.
Cool.
All right, let's talk events. So we had quite a few events happen since the last Shop Talk, and that's a lot of stuff hasn't been talked about, but Wake the City was the oldest one, I guess. You weren't there, right, Gavin? Mm-hmm. We were, though, us three. And I'm curious on your guys' thoughts on how the event went down. Obviously, Gavin, you and your brother won it, but just overall, like, Wake the City vibes. I was, like, initially hesitant on the doubles riding thing because I thought it would be really confusing for, like, the general spectator to understand what's going on. And I think, like, I completely flipped on my thoughts on it because I think, well, it may be confusing for the general public to understand fully what's going on. They're not going to understand what's going on even if it's just a single rider. So, like, just to give them the wow factor to me is, like, huge, and you definitely get that. And then you also get, like, the team aspect, which is the most easy thing to understand in terms of, like, when people don't know what they're looking at with wakeboarding. So, like, I don't know. Do you guys agree with that, disagree with that? I mean, obviously it was a successful event, but.
Yeah, I think they said 15,000 people were there, which for being in a park and nothing else was going on but the event, for the event to draw that many people is pretty cool.
Had to commute there too. People.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like people in the city where
stumble
you
into
would
it.
accidentally walk next to it.
Yeah, which is completely different compared to where it's been in the past, where it's in a canal in Milan, Italy, where if you're walking by, it's almost impossible not to stop, which I think kind of takes away from viewers, but it's cool to see that you can still get 15,000 people to come when they have to commute somewhere. So I think in that aspect, if you want more viewers, you got to go to a place where the viewers are already there, or because you can only reach so many by having them come to you.
Yeah, like a Chicago or something where you're like literally
Miami,
right
Tampa,
downtown Tampa. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, because I feel like I heard some of the Euro riders maybe were saying that, like, or maybe not even the Euro riders, just people saying that in Milan it was like way more busy, and it's just like, well, no shit, like you're right in the center of it. It's obviously that's going to be the case. But
also, I think there's a huge factor when you count people as far as like the area that the people are fulfilling. So the area around this lake was massive. Yeah. If you have a sidewalk or a street, I'm not that familiar with the setup in Milan, like it can feel like a lot more people without actually necessarily being more people. You know what I mean? Like if the streets look full, you know, if you have a smaller space but 10,000 people, it's going to feel better as a rider, and it's going to feel like you made a bigger impact on wakeboarding, but you actually might not have had more eyes.
Yeah.
Just playing devil's. I don't know, actually, any idea about the numbers there. But
as a rider, like as much as I loved having it in the States and having Red Bull contests in the States, it was definitely more fun and better in Italy. The riders are just, or like the crowd, first off, is just way closer. You feel more interacted. You can spray them and whatnot. That and how they were in Milwaukee being so far away. Even it's the edge of the lake, but still quite a bit difference away. It's like night and day difference. And then there wasn't I didn't think there was a whole lot to do outside of wakeboarding, where when you're in Milan, you can do a whole lot of stuff. And this, it was kind of just like, we just stayed around, watch wakeboard, and then hotel and back.
Yeah, tough life. But I would agree that like I always think the two tower system setups are like best done when you can touch the riders or you can spray the fans, and like obviously it's hard to put a 2-tower system. I mean, John, you would know, like, did you say you tried to run it along shore and you couldn't do it, and so you had to go across the lake, or what was the deal with that?
Yeah, of course, my first pitch was like, oh, let's go from where the VIP's corner was, like along the shoreline where the starting dock was, over to like it kind of like was a cove. You couldn't get far enough from shore to put features on the inside, and we couldn't get permission. I mean, for some context, we changed location like 6 weeks before the event. So we couldn't get permission to put towers in the water, because that was, Lake Michigan. It was not like private land like the shore on the side was. So that was, maybe it could have worked, but even still, there would have been a lot of, other pieces. Like we would have needed bigger towers and other things like that to make it work. We would have needed machines that could have reached that far or have been on boats and so on. So
that's what I'm saying, where it's like logistically,
and it wasn't long enough. Yeah. Like also without putting it far enough from shore that it was almost just as bad. Yeah. But yeah, for sure, like the location is way more ideal the closer the people are. I think there's just a lot of logistics on the backside of that event that led to it becoming that way. Because like I said, it was a different location anyways before that was parallel.
Well, it's a better location, this one, than the original one, from what I understood. So at least
you would have been technically closer to people, not significant enough to matter in my opinion, and it would have been parallel to shore, but it would have probably cost a lot more, which is not necessarily good for the future wakeboarding, because it's like if we can keep the ROI good, more likely to do more events,
Yeah, definitely. We also had Double or Nothing. I mean, unless there's anything else. I mean, you have any thoughts on Wake the City?
What's your thoughts not being there? Like as seeing social or whatever? Or
do you wish there was a live stream going on? I mean, I feel like a lot of people were asking for a live stream, I guess, is where.
I think it's always great to have a live stream at events. I don't know that it's always practical or worth the money. But I thought the event was a lot of fun. I thought it looked like a lot of fun, which I think is great. I think wakeboarding's a tough sport. It's hard to get into, so anytime people can watch it and it looks like fun with the homies and everyone's hyped up, like, it's great. So in that sense, I was a big fan. I heard people complaining about like the format, but I thought it was great. I thought it looked like a lot of fun.
Dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't even know about that.
Oh, just some people I heard like were against the doubles format in general, kind of like you had mentioned. They think it's not as easy to understand or whatnot, but like Hunter said, most people don't understand anyways, so making it look more fun with the homies, it gets just more creative. I heard like Felix and Nico were riding the hump together, just fun stuff like that I think is good for the sport.
I was more impressed now with the doubles format. I also was not a fan of the doubles format. To me, it's hard to picture wakeboarding that way. Like I don't think of wakeboarding, we don't do doubles normally. So it's like, to show the best wakeboarding, you'd probably want to do something we practice the most, which is like, when Red Bull called me up and they're like, oh, we want to do a doubles contest, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna try to even change the format on this, because you already have this dialed, you know what you want. Maybe we'll change the location, or maybe we'll change this or that or whatever, But in my mind, I was like, oh, I wish we could have just started from scratch and come up with something new. But after seeing this year compared to like year one, I was like, wow, it's come so far, because like people have started to figure it out. And of course the layout can help or hurt that as well, and other things. But I don't know. I'm kind of like Hunter, where I was like, I was not super stoked on it being doubles for being the first one back in America, because I felt like it's our chance to showcase wakeboarding, and it's not how wakeboarding normally looks. But yeah,
I think a lot of people forget things that, like, as a wakeboarder, you're like, I want it to be a wakeboard contest. It's just normal fucking wakeboarding, blah, blah, blah. But you forget that, like, when you have a team contest, you have like people were matching their kits, which is like goofy, but whatever. It's funny. It's cool. Like
I think it was sick.
It was sick. Like people repped like some local stuff, and then B, like the most important thing I think you get with this is you get high fives and smiles that you never get ever at any other wakeboard contest.
That's
Everybody is on the dock and they're like trying to win. Sure, some people are like rooting, like cheering each other on sometimes, and like it's good vibes sometimes, but literally like high fives, smiles. People understand that. They get that. They can like. That resonates with them. So I think that's another huge thing that is overlooked maybe by some of the riders where they're like, oh, I don't like the format that much. It's like, well, there's a lot more to it at play than maybe you just having the perfect format for you to win the contest.
Yeah. I mean, my other thought on the format was, well, it's almost the rider cost is twice as much. You have to, like, they're paying hotels for all these riders. They're giving food to people, all that type of stuff, which at first I was like, again, it's in my mind, like, let's make just the sickest ROI for Red Bull. So they're like, we got to do this event every single year. But looking back, I was like, they seem super stoked. And riders, it was so cool to see riders who maybe would not have had an opportunity to ride in this contest because there's 36 riders in the contest instead of just the few at Munich Mash, you know?
Yeah.
So that was super dope to have so many riders get that experience of like that Red Bull treatment.
Yeah, because then that's another more styles of riders and more variety that you're showing off, which is cool.
Every positive has negatives and vice versa.
Yeah, you'll never nobody's ever gonna love it. It's always gonna have downsides and upsides. But we got a Patreon question from Daniel Jarrett. He's wondering, do you think we'll ever see a street league style contest series in Wake in our lifetime, or would you like to see this?
I'd love to see it. 50K first place.
I was like, what does he mean by street league? Because it was like 150K the first year.
I don't think purse is like what he's
that's what
referring to.
It could definitely be in the conversation. Let's not take it out. But I think I've said this to a number of people, but I think a really cool way to do a cable contest is you take a 2.0 and you go to 5 big cities a year, like Singapore, Miami, like that kind of level, and you put it in the city. You take features from the local cable, and you have like a short list, kind of similar to Munich Mash, where it's invited only. Maybe there's a qualifier at the local cable for a rider or two, and you have a 1-day or 2-day event in the city on the weekend, and it's big prize money. And then it's a series, and it's like 5 series.
And it has a name that you can market and you can advertise and you can sell. Sure. Like, Do you think we'll ever see it though? Like, do you think it's something that can happen?
I mean, I know someone with a 2.0 that could be able to make it happen.
That's kind of where I'm thinking. There's a guy that has a 2.0. I think he has a couple of features too, so he wouldn't even need to steal all the features from the local cable.
And
I think Dan knows this as well.
Yeah. What's it going to take to make it happen?
Well, first, I mean, I think we all know we all want it.
We all love it.
What's your
Yeah.
thoughts on this type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be great. Like, I don't know, like, if it's going to change the sport in any way, if it's going to provide, like, more money for the riders or grow it or any way. But, like, yeah, I'm all for more contests, more variety, keep everything different, keep people engaged.
I think Street League was revolutionary for the same reason we need it in wakeboarding. And it wasn't prize money. It was the fact that with Maloof Money Cup, they figured out how to make a street skate park in 2 or 3 days out of concrete, not going to an existing skate park or bringing in prefabricated wooden features and things like this. And I think that being said, pretty much street skateboarding wasn't street skateboarding in contests. It was like there was street skateboarding video parts where they were hitting metal rails, down stair sets and stuff. And then street skateboarding was like going to a park and calling a street. And that's basically what our features only style events are right now, or a lot of our events. I do think, depends how you look at the sport, but we need a 2.0 series in cities. I think that's like the next step to grow the sport and to kind of legitimize things and to
that's what Street League did. I feel like Street League created a repeatable competitive landscape that, like, if anyone's looking to be like, okay, what is competitive skateboarding right now?
Yeah,
that's what competitive skateboarding is. It's a repeatable thing that has a certain amount of riders. It's judged this way.
Well, and it
well done.
It was really cool because, like I said, it was revolutionary in the park setups as well, not just the fact that they did this tour. That's actually probably what got them the sponsors and stuff. These are things that need to happen to get the sponsors, is what I'm trying to say. And I think we're there. I think we have some stuff. I've definitely been working on some concepts and everything. That was part of buying a 2.0, as you guys have mentioned. I would obviously love to see it. I think, as Gavin said, like the way he said makes a lot of sense. I think that there has to be some twist on how we make the setup. Like, in my opinion, metal rail should be involved, or they don't have to be involved, but like doing something different like that will not only be good for the sport, but also be good for like selling it to people, selling it to brands.
On that topic, I think we saw this in the skateboarding at Munich Mash. They had a sunglasses feature. I think you can easily do that with wakeboarding. Whether, like, you know, in Wake the Line, they had the beer bottle on top of the truck. They probably got, you know, a lot of dollars from that beer company to put it in there. I think something like that, you can easily make a feature that resembles some kind of sponsor that can be a sponsor of the event or the whole tour. 3 to 5 stops, and then that will those features being like that on top of the features from a local cable will supply plenty.
What was the specific question? Is it?
Do you think we'll see a street league wake in our lifetime? So the street league version of wakeboarding.
I mean, if I can, if there's anything I'm trying to do, this would be the one thing that.
So if you don't do it, it'll be a failure.
I think if one person's going to do it, it's him.
If we don't see it in the next 10 years, then I'm probably not in wakeboarding anymore.
Don't die within the next 10 years, Daniel.
And I'm not saying I'm the only one who could do it. Well, I guess that's what Gavin said. But I'm actually, my biggest concern is that other people want, that as a wakeboarding, we don't work together, that we fight over it.
Okay, speaking of that, let's go WWA, IWWF. So we got a question from Wake House, like the Wake House. I don't even know you call it team, I guess. I'm sure it's more than one person. But WWA events have always had tons of categories, and around the world, and the world deserves to understand the logic hidden in Johnny D's head as to why.
Oh my goodness. So it's so funny. But the day...
Kind of botched that there. But
I didn't even hear the question, but I can pretty much
Why are there so many categories in WWA?
Okay.
And why do the events happen on the same weekend at Worlds?
Well, first of all, a little backstory. The day the post came out on Inside Wake with
Great post, shout out Inside Wake, that was sick.
Championships, he had voice messaged me or messaged me that morning before they made the post, and I voice messaged him back like the reasoning, and he's like, "Oh, this makes so much sense. The world needs to hear this." And I was like, "Does the world need to hear this? Is there a platform to even tell the world? Because the things that go in this, there's so many factors that go in this decision." And then they made that post, and I was like, maybe the world needs to hear it. I had no idea.
Give us a kindergarten version of it.
Well, first of all, there's a lot of divisions when you take into consideration IWF. But when you break it down, the divisions changed, and they were strictly data-driven, basically. So, like, the year before at Nationals, I was like, okay, everyone I respect is saying how we need to have less divisions and all of this. I actually don't care what the answer is. I just want the sport to grow. So I was like, okay, let's make some less divisions at Nationals. Let's do things a little different, make it more clear. And people were, once divisions hit a certain size, people don't want to sign up anymore because they feel like they have no chance anymore, especially if they know they're not the best in whether it's their skill group or their age group. And then there's some like unit economics to it. So for example, if you had 5 divisions and they each had 40 riders, you're going to have like 5 rounds to get from 40 riders to a finals, 5 including the finals, right? So 40 riders have to ride 5 times. If you now split those 5 divisions up into 10 divisions and you have 20 divisions, you now have 3 rounds instead of 5 rounds. So now the same amount of riders have to only ride 3 times. That makes the contest take significantly less time, which is so important because you're asking a public business or private, whatever. It's a business that people come to regularly to close their doors for something. So now you're taking away from something they can make money. You're having to pay a lot more staff. Things are costing more money. You have to charge more entry fee because for that same entry fee, people have to ride more days. So there's a huge number factor to this that I just think needs to be thrown out there that people would like to skip, where we need to make the events make sense. And it's like, do you want double prize money and less divisions and less world champions? Well, now people are going to pay significantly less for the world or to enter the world championships because they have significantly less chances of actually succeeding and winning. And you might think that's a ridiculous statement, but it's just a fact when you look at the numbers of things we've tried.
Well, it makes sense. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah. So to me, the sweet spot is 12 to 20 riders in a division. Once I hit that 20, also like, let's look at it this way. 20 riders, great. Let's call it for simple numbers, because each event is different prices. $100 for that extra, for the next entry. Now for that extra single entry to get to 21 riders, I'm having to run 42 more runs, because all 21 riders now have to ride 2 more times for another round. Financially, that $100 just cost me a lot. And not that the event needs to be super profitable. It really doesn't need to be profitable at all. It just needs to break even. It needs to break even so we keep doing events, you know? And so if we're talking about what's best for the sport, I think every single thing points to the way it's laid out now, where you have more people will enter because they feel like they have a chance. You have like the events are kind of more profitable, which means we can put more money into prize money. We can pay judges better. We can do more events.
I mean, it just makes sense with the way you explained it. It makes sense to have more divisions with less people in them, because then more people are going to come.
Now there is integrity that matters, right? That we can't have too many divisions. But if you look at,
I think you blew integrity out the window when you have divisions. If I'm being honest, you have one world champion. Like the integrity doesn't fucking matter if it's 13 to 15 or 13 to 16.
If you look at the divisions, it's elementary school in America, middle school in America, JV, varsity, 18 plus, 30 plus, and so on. That makes sense. When you look at the physical body, it makes a lot of sense. Like, even if you could say an 18-year-old and 14-year-old went through puberty at the same time, it makes sense to split them up because you had 5 more years of that much more testosterone to build the muscles. We saw significant people, looking at the data, significant 14 and 15-year-olds dropped off because the division was 14 to 18. They'd ride at 13, they'd ride at 16. They felt like they had zero chance at 14 and 15. So if we want to keep people in wakeboarding longer, we need to keep them in the events, because when people are doing events, they look at wakeboarding as their sport, not as their hobby. They're way more willing to invest more money. They consider it more of their identity. They're going to travel to more parks. The economy of wakeboarding grows significantly when people are competing. That's why events are so important, and that's why you need to keep them in that thing, not to be serious, not to make it this end of the thing. It's like Gavin's podcast. It needs to be a fun, inviting experience where they get to make friends and connect with people, and the numbers just show that is the best way to keep the sport growing from my look at the last 5 years of all the contest entries that I have access to.
I think it'd make more sense if you just did it by a year. 13-year-old champion, 14-year-old champion, 15-year-old champion, 16-year-old champion.
Divisions get small then.
Exactly. More people win. More people stay in the sport.
And also, I think this is an interesting question. What's the ideal age now, ideal amount of divisions? Now, we were lower at Worlds, but based on Nationals and Worlds the last 2 years, the divisions that I changed it to would have had 12 to 20 people in every single division except one. And the only reason that one didn't make sense or didn't fit that is because we don't have a lot of college age kids.
Is this for Worlds, you said?
For Worlds and Nationals, the last 2 years.
The divisions would have been bigger at Worlds if IWWF was on a different weekend?
For sure. I was going to say, the fact that you might look at it and say, there's a lot of divisions with 4 to 6 people, but our numbers were low because 1, it's in Australia, and 2, IWF had Worlds in Europe.
What do you think about that, Gavin? You got any thoughts on any of this? No?
Sorry for my rant, but that's the reason.
No, that's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
Do you think divisions should be skill-based or age-based?
I think they should be age-based.
For Worlds or for every event?
For Worlds.
Okay. For Worlds, I'd agree. For Nationals, I'm good with skill-based.
This is a massive conversation as well.
What do you think?
That we had.
So you think
for Worlds, I'm good with age-based. For Nationals, I'm good with skill-based.
And all, like, even lower contests than that, too, like skill-based.
Yeah, if it's like your local park contest, yeah, it should be skill-based. Like, you don't have enough of the age groups. Like, let the 17-year-old who's a beginner compete with the younger kid who's a beginner.
Yeah.
I think the study, the numbers show the same thing. That on a smaller local event, that it feels better for kids, but also, more people want to enter and things like that when it's age-based. When it's a bigger world championship event, when it's skill-based local event, when it's a world championship age. But at what point do you transition?
Yeah, because who's to tell you you're in the novice? Like, what makes you the novice world champion other than winning? Like, you could be an intermediate and be middle of the pack. So I think age-based makes a lot more sense when you're talking rankings like that. But I think stepping back, I think that having that many divisions, first off, it sounds worse probably because there's 2 disciplines with features and traditional.
But and IWF.
Yeah, and I think, that actually ruins it a lot more, as having 2 organizations have a contest that's called Worlds. I think if you look at USASA, like the snowboarding, they have just as many divisions on their stuff. If you look at USA
And they
Surfing
have
Prime,
more disciplines.
just as many divisions with age groups. I don't think that's necessarily a problem. I think it should be that way. But I think the bigger issue is having two different organizations calling one event Worlds.
For the record, I don't have any personal attachment to any of the age, skill, whatever. I'm literally just going off what I think is.
I think we're on the same
Pretty
page
sure.
when it comes to the age skill thing. I think it makes sense.
I think what gets hard with, like, he's talking about sandbagging and different things like
I
that.
think you just got to get roasted at your local cable. Like, bring bullying back for that part.
What I think people miss, just to hit on what he said first, then we'll go to the at the same time division. I have to build something. If I'm going to do the Street League thing, which I didn't want to make this public, but that was always like my goal, was to try to make this happen if I'm able to. Well, then I need to design a system that I can have other people run. I could handle this, moving people from divisions, having conversations with parents that are really hard to have, having, looking at a kid's Instagram and being able to say, yeah, like, he goes in that division, he goes in that division, this is easy, whatever. But that's not very sustainable and scalable in any way.
No, it's not, because nobody's going to be like
internationally
you
or
doing that. Everybody else is going to be soft and not actually, like, they're all going to bend the knee when it comes to that stuff.
And
so, like, that kinda
they're gonna
ruins the
quit,
thing
dude.
of
These
that.
parents are gnarly sometimes. Like, and also it's like, it's worse when you give them the hope that they spent all this money so their kid could become the beginner world champion or national
that
champion.
rolls out the tongue, bro.
That's the other thing. I
Beginner world
don't think
champion.
title events should be skill based. Personally,
No, that's what we were saying. Yeah,
but also, yeah, like it's not a. There is no world where it's sustainable to pass it on and grow it. And when Blake Hess moved on, Blake Hess did so much incredible things. There was not someone who was willing to kind of come in and do this, because it's hard. It just is. And so when it comes to that, that's why nationals is not skill based as well. And also no other country in the world has events that are skill based, I believe, just America. And although I think they're very successful in local cable parks, if you're doing a local event, make it skill based. I'll give you what I recommend. But yeah, I think on an organizational level, it has to be age based, because you can be the, elementary or like the 10 and
that's
under
fine.
world champion.
I agree with that.
Because you could be the best in the world 10 and under.
But I think Gavin's spot on, Stuckey with.
I want to actually touch on something else you said, because you mentioned, that age group of teenagers that's obviously the biggest age group outside of pro, probably, or maybe even in general, teenagers.
It's the biggest division always.
Okay, so there's going to be people that are in that group that can't compete with the people that are higher, because you have people that are prodigies that are going to be pro one day that are in that division now. So I think that was the whole point of junior pro. And that's what kind of separates what you were talking about, of people being a lot higher and skilled than the younger people in that. And I think if you include that junior pro, it evens out the playing field, makes the divisions like less packed, like you were saying. So it evens it out, and then you have a win-win there.
Which we do have, which is elite. Because if we call it pro, we have to charge double in the membership fee.
So-
and I don't want to charge double for no reason. So we don't pay you, so it's not going to be called. But that's why we'd have to, anyways.
But
stuff doesn't matter.
like some people were saying, talking about making more divisions and more divisions, I think that is one of the only regions or places that you need another division.
Because you're taking the outliers from those groups.
Yeah,
and, like,
exactly.
that's
break
the
them up,
point
which
of
is what you want
that's
to do.
only
yeah.
where the outliers lie.
That's the point of it. And then
Yeah.
now as a kid, I don't let kids in 10 and under go to 11 to 13. They have to go to that elite division. And now we have so every two divisions have an elite division for the outliers. So you can go for, if you're 10, you can be 10 and under 13 elite. You can be under 17 elite, or you can be pro. You can ride in all four of these. You just can't ride in 11 to 13, because if not, you could ride in 18 and plus, and then adults won't sign up because kids are competing against them. It's all very we've had these conversations 100 times,
Contest, crazy. Wakehouse was also wondering if there's any feature we would like to see incorporated in Wakehouse. So these are the guys that do like the online rankings, right?
I still want to get back to the IWF thing, but I don't want to go on events for.
Yeah,
5
well,
years.
shout out Martin at Wakehouse, because
Yeah.
no one's making him do this stuff. He does it on his own time.
And his own money.
Yeah, and it's pretty legit site. And
Very legit.
Like all the rankings and stuff that he's been doing, and even the cinema and everything about the site's like making the cable scene more legit.
Yeah, I like the rankings a lot. At first I was like, I thought it was weird that like content can be filtered in there, but you can just filter all that out and just do contest results.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's fine. Like I think that's super cool that content is brought in, but you can also just be like, okay, I just want to see contests.
It's
like,
very
who's
needed
winning.
because there's no like significant tour like the boat riders have where you can see an overall and like the board and everything. But and cable, with it being so many different events and under different people and different contests and stuff, this makes it 100 times easier to depict a leaderboard.
For reasons we
legitimizes.
don't need to get into, this is a lot easier and more realistic than trying to make all the existing events into a tour. Because, I mean, just to say that the concept's easy, but it's not like it's not been thought about.
Well, to get all
before.
those moving parts to agree with each other and stuff. I mean, it
Plus,
sounds like a
then
nightmare.
like conflicting sponsors and all these, it just gets like very complicated without a lot of money
Yeah, definitely.
or employees.
We got another Patreon question from Philip Kunti. I don't know how to say his name. I met him several times and I don't know how to say his name still. How do cable parks prepare for the hurricane? Hope everyone stays safe. So OWC deflated all their aquapark features, right? And then pulled all the.
That'd be
features
really
to
smart.
shore.
It'd be really not smart to not deflate them.
Yeah, I mean the aqua park is probably the lightest thing that's in the water, so it's gonna go first if it
And the
blows.
big surface area usually.
Yeah, so taking that to the side, storing it up. Some people move unit features to the side of the cable.
I think that's what they were doing or said they were going to do.
ODUB had all the features but pool gap on shore.
Okay. Anchored up to shore. Yeah.
There's
so that's it. Yeah.
There's a few. There's some things you can do when you're not expecting a hurricane, but you're expecting high winds. It makes the most sense. First of all, when you're anchoring a feature, we recommend that one anchor be stronger than the other four for this reason. I recommend untying 3 of the 4 anchors if that rope is actually strong enough, because the rope won't have tension on it. The feature will swing around and move around. You do have to make sure it's like short enough to not run into anything and stuff. But that can sometimes be better than tying it to shore because of the water level changes on shore and things like that. And the damage, like if the feature gets pounded into shore too much, depending on your shoreline. But ODUB has beach, so makes sense. But that's like a pro tip.
But still, don't wait a year to put your feature back and let it get beached for a while. That's not a
Also
good situation.
a lot.
Once the storm's through, put that sucker
A
back.
lot of
yeah, don't wait.
a lot of people have damaged features from this. They put it on shore, the water raises, the water lowers, half the feature stays on shore, half the feature is in the water level lowering, and it damages the part of the feature sitting on shore because the pressure point is really awkward on a ride-on surface, and you break the welds or the seam or whatever, you know? So you have to make sure it's back in the water.
Bringing the shore isn't like, it wasn't the number one idea. It's just so that when the water level rises in the hurricanes, the anchors don't snap and they're just like free floating everywhere. It's just to secure them somewhere else.
Right.
Preventative measures. So yeah, there you go. And then as far as the actual cable itself, I don't think you have to do anything with the towers or cable itself or anything, right?
Hopefully just turn it off.
Yeah.
When would I leave that thing?
Turn it off. Yeah.
Make sure your power is good and stuff for like lightning and all that, you know?
Yeah,
but-
definitely. All right, we got a last Patreon question from Josh Boyle, and this is kind of a boat thing, and I've touched on this on the podcast quite a bit, but he's wondering if the prices of boats are an issue in the growth of wakeboarding in America, and he's saying, are there any statistics that show that people aren't interested in towed water sports when they see the price of a brand new boat?
Interesting.
I would be curious to see if I don't know. I don't think you can actually get that number. That's not a statistic you can actually
No,
achieve
it sounds like
or
a
attain.
boat salesman right here.
Yeah,
I think obviously a high price is deterring for some people, but it's not like there's not alternative options, you know. Obviously used boats is one.
Yeah.
You know, not everyone out there needs a huge wake, but the reason Nautique and these people are making these higher price points is because there is a market and people are still going to buy them no matter what. So that's why it's there. It's not because they do it, you know, to make the price of wakeboarding or so-called towed water sports higher. It's just that there's a niche market and they're going to pay that.
We can talk about boat price forever, but I think the real problem comes when a brand's marketing budget for events and athletes doesn't scale with the profits, if that makes sense. You know, like if the profits are going to go up and athletes are getting paid more and a bit more events or more prize money or whatever,
that's the bigger problem.
then I don't think we would be complaining as much. I mean, we've talked about this a lot, but I also think the way you look at boat prices can be so diverse. You can look at it, comparing it to the price of houses on lakes specifically. And if you look at the house on lakes specifically, they didn't change and inflate at the same rate that houses not on lakes or houses in general changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's limited capacity. There's a lot of ways you can analyze it. I haven't yet. And I'd rather dive into the numbers before I say they're too expensive or not. But I think, invest in the companies that are supporting riders and events, I think.
Would you be able to read it one more time?
Yeah, he said the second part or the whole thing?
The whole thing.
He said, are prices of boats an issue in the growth of wakeboarding in America? And he says, are there even any statistics that show that people are interested in towed water sports, but when they see the price of a brand new wakeboard boat, they lose interest? That's an interesting one, actually. Reading the second part again, maybe. There's no statistics to show that, but maybe that could be.
Well, who are buying these boats, and why are they buying these boats? And when they're buying these boats, they're buying it for the luxury.
I'm just saying, if someone is interested in wakeboarding, they walk into a dealership. I think that's what he means.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that's going to be the case because not everyone can afford a Paragon off the shelf. But I think what he more means is you look at a sport like football where all you need is a ball and a field of grass and you can go play the sport. Where the sport that we do, it takes a lot more to get into, so it can be deterring and the level of difficulty is harder, obviously, to get into. And I think that's more what he means. So I think obviously if it's going to cost that much, it's for sure going to deter some people, but I wouldn't look at it that way.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
I don't think that anyone goes, oh, I want to learn to wakeboard, and then goes to a boat dealership and looks at $200,000
exactly.
boats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say that.
I don't know how
that
big
way.
of an issue it is, but I get that at the same time, the dad who bought his kid a board over summer and he rode for a year and the kid loves it and the kid's like, oh, I want to be a pro wakeboarder. And the dad's like, oh, well, I'm never going to be able to do that for you because I can't buy you a good enough boat. I do think that could be an issue, but there was a long generation of people riding small wakes and doing Crow 5s and stuff. You can learn a lot. And
I think that comes back to both the marketing on the boat brands and the board brands and everybody in the industry as a whole. I think the marketing push should be shifted way away from the G and the big wakes and all that stuff, and should be shifted back towards the actual fun of the sport. And you can do this on all these boats. That's where we really need to put money and focus towards. The expensive boats are going to sell no matter what. That doesn't fucking those will sell.
This is for sure a fact.
You build the base.
And I don't want to make it this way, but also if riders got paid better by boat brands, then it'd be more incentive for the wealthy to invest in kids doing the sport. I don't want to turn wakeboarding this way, but it is twofold in that sense, and I think what you said, that there's a huge marketing problem for sure on promoting and stuff. And I mean, I've made efforts towards that. I think it's fair to say that the industry has grown. I mean, I sat in a meeting about this 5 years ago at WSA, and I think it's fair to say the industry has grown significantly since that meeting, because at that meeting, riders weren't allowed to film on these smaller boats and these price point things or use boats and promote it. And now we see a lot of that content. And so we're making progress.
Yeah, I think as an industry as a whole, I think it'd be really cool to see all these riders, and obviously in their contracts they got to ride behind these boats and stuff like that. But it'd be cool just to see them go around the country. And this is easier said than done. People are busy with big schedules, but go around the world and ride behind the 2007 VLX or whatever. All these old boats that are the majority of the boats out there, honestly, or maybe not the majority, but there's a shit ton of these boats on all these lakes with all these people who maybe have just forgotten about the sport of wakeboarding because for one reason or another, they set the wakeboard down and haven't picked it back up. But it doesn't take much, I don't think, to reignite that spark and be yeah, I do have this boat.
Yeah.
So it's still sick.
But on the first of all, yeah, I agree.
And posting videos and footage of that, all the pro riders only ever ride behind the biggest wakes.
Yeah.
To me, that's a problem.
There was a marketing problem. I think the whole, all the riders see that. And like I said, the riders are making efforts. I don't know that the boat brands have changed to being cool with them doing that, or not. I don't know. I'm not going to say that they have or haven't, but I think that, back to the marketing thing. It's I don't think there's anything wrong with having fancy sports. I mean, how expensive do cars get? We all still have a car. I'm very, very curious on the two boats that Malibu released. Because people always want to hate on the boat brands, and as a cable rider, I'm like, yeah, I can get behind this. Just go ride cable. But at the same time, like,
Yeah, there's 30 in America. It's not like you just go ride cable. It doesn't exist for 99.99% of Americans.
The other thing I'm working on is trying to put up way more 2.0s in America because it's actually reasonable to put them up compared to like to put up 100 2.0s and to put up 100 full size. That's a very unrealistic goal in a short term. But I think that to do like, you have very expensive boats or very expensive cars and stuff. Everyone still drives a car. Malibu released these boats that are more price point. Are we seeing numbers? Are we seeing sales going on with these boats that are like way cheaper than their high end boats that are still like Malibu name brand? We have, Mastercraft has the NXT line. In the end, they're a business, and if people want that and consumers want that, then I think they will sell them. Yeah. I bought a boat with my own money, $20,000, a pretty nice 210. It was 2001, but like. Saved up. I bought one boat, sold it, saved up, bought another boat instead of buying a nice car. But
the problem is you're into wakeboarding, so we don't really care about the sale that you're buying. I want the sale of the dude that like thinks wakeboarding's sick.
First of all, I'm trying to say all of it exists. It's so easy to like look at the most expensive boat and hate on it, but there are boats that exist at a good price, and Heyday tried to do it. These brands have tried to do it as cheap as possible. I don't know what more you want from these brands, and I'm not defending the boat brands by any means because they should be marketing smaller wakes, I think, but like Heyday made it. How cheap is a ski boat that's way smaller? Go sit in a 210 from the one I have and go sit in a G21 and look at the difference in pure materials. I mean, the volume of materials is probably 4 times as much. And then you look at the price and you're like, okay, this kind of makes sense. Like, we aren't making boats as small in volume as we used to. We only stopped scaling in width because we legally couldn't go wider on roads. So we started scaling in depth, but they still scaled. You're not buying the same size boat for the same price. And like I said, there are people trying to make cheaper boats, or people buying the cheaper boats. That could be a marketing problem.
I don't know. I feel like there isn't, like, people always think there's a problem with like the expensive boats. I don't think there's a problem really at all, because like more people are getting into water sports as the years go on, I think, because more boats are getting sold and the boats just don't disappear. Like, people have the boats, the used market, people buy the boats on the used market. The people who sold the boat bought a new boat. It's like, it's growing. More people are getting on the water. So I feel like it's almost like a faux problem a little bit. The problem that I would like to solve is like getting more people actually wakeboarding, rather than just doing like the lifestyle aspect.
Well, and I think we're pretty quick to be like, oh yeah, go past the handle, get someone on a wakeboard. But like, I think there's another problem with that being the end goal. Like, that's not the end goal. The end goal is that they own a wakeboard. If they don't own a wakeboard, they've just wakeboarded once. They're not a wakeboarder, And so I think that that's another thing we can reframe. But I mean, that's a whole other conversation.
That's a culture thing.
I guess I'm just like, I'm just kind of over, like, exhausted of the conversations talking about boat prices, but like, there isn't, like, people are trying to solve it and there isn't really a good solution. Like, people are just negative about it without providing like, this could work or that could, because in the end it probably can't work.
Yeah, I don't think it's a huge deal, honestly, as big of a deal as people make it seem. Last thing to hit on here before we wrap this up, Brostock is back June 26th to 28th at Lake Lanier on the big park. I'm assuming everybody will be there.
I'll be there.
You better be there. Are you going to ride it? Is there an event? Do we know? Like, I believe, I'm sure there's going to be something.
Surely they're going to go on what they did and double up contest that thing.
I would assume.
Yeah. Surely.
You going to ride in that?
Why not?
Absolutely, dude. I'm sure it'll be a good purse for sure.
Could be. You're going to be there, John.
I might have a trip planned for that week already.
Yeah, scratch that.
Another bad look.
Yeah.
Gavin, you going to go?
I'll be there if I'm free.
Yeah, I'd be down to go. It seems like it's going to be a sick time.
I got too much time. Too much things now.
Sure.
Wakeboarding has too many.
Brostock's back and Johnny D's not going.
Wakeboarding. Okay, I didn't say that. Wakeboarding has too many sick things going on right now. It's the best problem we've had in so long.
I'm just saying. I think I've been saying, even saying to Johnny D, I think wakeboarding is definitely on the up and up. Like, event wise, I think participation's up. I think energy around the sport's up, and then that might just be a whole action sports thing. Like, I think action sports might be on the incline again. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't have any stats to back that up.
I don't know if
it's just a vibes kind of thing.
I don't know if sales are up or not, but it's obvious that the first of all, on the cable side, I can speak that the money coming into the sport from outside the sport is more than it was when you look at like Red Bull investing and other things and happening. And there's way more events going on. More video parts are dropping from what I've seen. Haven't counted, but like it just seems like more things are happening. And I would hope that would lead to more wakeboarders.
There we go. Wakeboarding's back, baby.
But I didn't intentionally try to skip the IWF WWA thing. But we can.
You got thoughts,
table
Gavin?
that.
You're a contest judge. I mean, you got any thoughts on the IWWF WWA debacle?
I don't know what the debacle is.
I just feel like it looks like I was like avoiding it. I wasn't avoiding it. I meant to get to it.
I mean, I don't know who planned it first. I don't know if it was intentional. Obviously, it's not ideal to have them on the same weekend, but we have so many events, like things are going to overlap. It's Worlds in Australia and Worlds in Europe. Like you're getting a completely different crowd anyways. What, 10% of the people at one would have went to both if they weren't on the same weekend?
I don't mind that take.
That's a political answer right there.
I have a thought, but I think people, like, if people want to hear more, they should just go read the Inside Wake thing, because you could go on forever about this, and I don't think it really matters. But I think that if you look at IWF, they don't have prize money. However, federations are involved, and people are getting money from federations for showing up to this thing, right? Well, it depends on the country, but like Loic won, right? And he probably won something from his federation. Let's call it like 15 grand. Could be more, could be less.
You won 15K to win that?
No, not that high.
Okay. If you're from Israel, it's more.
More than 15K?
I thought if you
win
were
that sucker?
France, no, that's not the contest prize money. That's how much the federation in France will
Yeah.
pay him.
Yeah, they'll pay podium spots.
They won't pay
Yeah,
him.
I know.
Clearly, it's not him. I don't know his
Yeah.
his details. I'm just throwing. These are real numbers, though. That people have
Getting
won
good money
15
from the
grand.
Gov. Got it.
Now, they didn't win it from IWF, but they didn't get it from a cable park. They didn't get it from a board company. They didn't get it from a sponsor. They got it from something that would not have come to wakeboarding.
They got it from
without.
taxpayer money. That's where they got it from.
Yeah, so what we need to focus on in wakeboarding is growing the economy of wakeboarding, the money that is coming into wakeboarding and being moved around. It's why I think more pros, and I've reached out to many pros, like they should be doing coaching. They should be doing these things because these parents might be spending on piano lessons, a vacation. They should be spending on wakeboarding. The more money that comes into wakeboarding, the better. I know for a fact WWA paid 50,000 Australian dollars there was 50,000 Australian dollars paid out at Worlds in Australia, which is like 33,000 US dollars, and not $1 from that came from a board company, a cable park, or anything like that.
So we got two good things going on, is what I'm hearing.
I got paid to stay in the sport and hopefully work on more things.
Just don't do it the same way.
Pro rider Gavin got paid to judge. So the same weekend is another thing, but I feel like it's so easy to be like, oh, we need to have one Worlds, we need to have this, we need to have that. Like, obviously, you could say I'm team one company because I work for the company, but in reality, I think like we need to first focus on it. Like, as an industry, we eat, and then we can start deciding on.
Couldn't you just rotate every other year? Doesn't IWWF do it every other year? Couldn't WWA do the other year? And then we're all
So
kosher?
you'd rather have one less event and have Gavin Stuckey walk away with 10,000 less Australian dollars this year, and Trent 10,000. I'm averaging the two, but 10,000 less Australian dollars this year, and Rivers the same thing. Then have two Worlds.
I think two Worlds is a really bad look for a sport, but that's my take.
I don't think there's enough money in wakeboarding to just be like. Now, first of all,
Couldn't you guys work together on either one?
the other take.
So then you could.
If these are real questions, I have real answers. So like,
The
I
real
don't
question
want
is,
to.
couldn't you work together on it? And like, WWA brings in their money, and IWF takes government money, so that's totally fine. That you guys won't ever conflict with that.
The
Well,
way.
Actually, the WWA gets paid as well from the government. I know that.
Oh, they do.
You can, yeah. If you we have to work on it, and we're working on it. But we've worked with federations like in Sweden and stuff where they've got to the
Sounds like
federation.
you guys should work together.
the
and
government
make
just
get
has to
shit ton of money.
prove it. Well, first of all, if you want one to change from Worlds or the other, good luck telling a company that their bread and butter and the most important event in their thing has to change and get rid of. No business is going to say my number one product that I'm surviving off of is I'm going to get rid of it for the sake of culture. It's not going to happen. WWA had Worlds first. IWF was a ski company that then made their Worlds, and I'm not saying one is right or the other. They are, from skiing, had the backing of the Olympics and stuff, and to them, it's, if you look at the comments Maui posted, I'm just trying to be factual here. They find that makes them legitimate by having like an IOC stamp on something, even though wakeboarding's not in the Olympics, and that's why they belong. WWA is like, well, we've been doing this from the beginning. Again, all that money came from outside of wakeboarding that we used to pay staff, pay my salary, pay judges, pay riders. So I don't, and that's mostly because of the name Worlds. I don't really think, you could argue either one, but who should give that up? And I don't really want to be like, yeah, I'm just going to take, a lot less money for the sport that is, first of all, that's why I have a job. If Worlds went away, if Worlds was every other year, I probably couldn't have a job with them. I'm not full time, but it could change the fact that Wake the City may never have happened because I had to stay in wakeboarding to make Wake the City happen. And you do have Wake the City wouldn't have happened without me. I'm not trying to take credit. I'm just trying to state the facts at this point. And it's like, I think that.
I mean, the path forward is that you have two companies or whatever that are not going to budge. Like, this isn't going to change. Like, IWWF is not going to say.
That's not necessarily true.
WWA is not going to say that.
However, let's look. To say that I'm not working on some kind of interesting solution to work together or whatever, that's definitely on my mind and something I've considered. One thing, you look at Street League and World Skate, that's the same too, as Street League isn't fully WWA, but they worked together and they both became IOC certified and did different things. Now there's one Worlds now, but Street League is an Olympic qualifier as well as
And that's the
same with WSL
forward,
and surfing and other ones. Yeah. So is there a world we work together? Sure, but I would say that it feels like only one side would be willing to work with the other side.
Gun to your head, what's more important, WWA World Champ or IWWF World Champ?
That's not even a question. I think from the beginning, Daniel Grant,
Which one are you putting in your bio if you win both? You can only put one in your bio. Which one are you going to put in?
I'm just going to say I grew up looking up to Daniel Grant, and he always called it fake worlds and worlds. And people I know in Europe have stickers on their board, anti-IWF. I am not anti-IWF. As I said, they're very focused in Europe. If you look at what I've focused on with WWA, it's been away from Europe because, again, we need just everyone to eat. I'm happy for IWF.
WWA is going in the bio.
To me, yeah, I don't think I've also never flown to an IWF contest for that reason. I don't consider legit. When I look at people who are in the last 10 years that are legit pros that have competed in one of the two, all the legit pros went to WWA, and people who don't have pro models and don't make a living and stuff went to IWF. Now, maybe you could call them pro because they made a living from Israel to be military to work because they won an IWF contest, and they made more money than people getting paid from wakeboarding. But I wouldn't have called that a legit pro necessarily. I'd call it a national pro, So to me, that one's more legit. And I like the contest better, the format better, and those type of things, and the legitimacy in my eyes. Having seen it more, lean that way.
As a rider, I would probably go, if we had an American Federation that paid out 10 grand for first, I'd probably go to that one as a rider.
Okay. That would make sense.
But you're changing the question.
No,
I'm taking money out of it.
I'm just talking about what you just said about one, how more legit riders have chose one over the other. Okay. I'm saying that's what would affect my choice.
But that'd be money motivated, right?
For sure.
So if WWA's first place
revolves around dollars.
So if WWA's first place was 15 grand, you would then do WWA.
Yeah,
but it'd be great if you could do
whichever
both,
one pays more.
if they were on the same weekend.
So I'm just trying to say, you're saying hypothetically, if this one organization had more money, if either organization had more money, you choose them. It doesn't have anything to do with one or the other.
I mean, it's just a contest at the end of the day. I'm going to go the one with the bigger purse.
I just want more money.
Just clarifying what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that makes sense to me.
For sure. I would expect everybody to do
that. I have zero
all riders to do that.
I have zero negative feelings to the people who did go to IWF, and I'm great friends. I'm really good friends with Raph Trinidad and other people, and I'm not like, oh, you should have come to my event. That's not at all how I feel either.
Fair. I mean it makes sense. I think the first solution would be to not have them on the same weekend, so at least that way, if people want to go to the IWF and then also go to WWA, they're able to do so.
Well, the facts are one was announced 6 months before another.
IWF, get your shit together.
What the reasoning is, like they might have a very good reason for doing that for the benefit of the sport. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not trying to be one-sided. I don't have any personal anti-IWF anything. Again,
I know plenty of events is hard too, and there's only so many weekends in a year, and especially if you're doing it in Europe, weekends are even less. I mean, Australia too. It doesn't matter where you're at in the world unless you're like in Florida, where you can do pretty much
on an event side, there's usually more to the decision-making process than people see, you know?
Yeah. The dream, I would say, is just to not have them on the same weekend.
There
is the option.
There's a quote like,
cool.
You saw the decision I made, not the options I had. And I just think that 90% of the time I try to think that could be the case here. But when I heard it, yeah, of course, I was like, what the heck? Why is this the same weekend?
There's only so many weekends in a year. Get it. All right. Before we wrap this up, anything else we want to talk about here? Anything else we want to touch on? Kind of went all over the place, but.
Shout out Thomas. He won double or nothing with the double K.
True. Yeah, we forgot.
He did it in the run or the contest after too. So, and
yeah, that was wild.
In crappy conditions, like one go at a double up, landed it. Like I was impressed with that.
Yeah.
I forgot about the one at Worlds. That was crazy, dude. Very, very well done.
Yeah,
shout out
only
Thomas.
Nick was the only other person that whole final to land a double up.
Yeah.
Everyone else fell.
I think you're going to see him do that in a lot of things to come. And I think what's cool, Gunther did this, and Thomas is doing this. It's like he picks 8 tricks in a double up, and he's like, I'm going to like learn one at a time. And people are like, oh yeah, Thomas only has 7 tricks. He does, but wait for him to get that 8th trick. You know what I mean? Like, because he had 6 tricks last season or 5 tricks last season, and now he's got 7, and now he's got a double up. And it's like, it's just a really cool moment as a spectator, I think, to see someone putting together the whole picture slowly and being patient with it. And then like, maybe he'll put it all together and start winning a bunch of stuff. I don't know. Maybe he won't, but it's cool to see.
You judge a lot of stuff. So at double or nothing, Tyler Hyam was trying the same trick. If they both did the same trick, how would you ever decide which would be better, which would win? I mean, aside from who grabbed it longer, who's talented, I mean, like, how do you even approach that decision, I guess? Because you know that Tyler Hyam's trying the same trick that Thomas did.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to execution. 99% of the time, one of them's going to do it better, and you're going to be able to tell. If it's really that close, that at that point, like, I might start making the argument that, like, well, Luca did a back 10, and he was the only one to do a back 10, so maybe I would give him a little more love. I don't know. It'd be very situational.
Yeah. You got to see it to decide. That makes sense. Interesting.
I think in theory, a trick shouldn't be, especially not in the same round, maybe over time, but I don't think your score should change on one trick because a second trick happened. And it may be because I'm a bigger fan of like live scoring and that sort of thing, but I don't think it's not, I don't find it like fair or like the best trick's not winning then if you just say, oh, well, these 2 people did it. Unless you're so unconfident as a judge that you're like, maybe, which this would be the reason, is that you're like, oh, maybe this line on a rail wasn't as hard as I thought because every kid's doing it. That makes sense. But if you're so unconfident between the KGB and back 10 that then you see another KGB and then you're like, okay, maybe the back 10 was harder. Like, in reality, if you're giving it to the hardest trick, I think you gotta give it to the hardest trick.
If there's a run and I watch 3 kids do a KGB and 1 kid do a Moby Dick, like, I'm scoring the Moby Dick higher, even though they're the same, just because he was different.
But if you saw 3 kids do a back 7 and 1 kid do a back 5, you score on the back 5 higher?
No, it's not the same difficulty. But Moby Dick, KGB are similar difficulty. But yeah, if the kid did a grab back 5 steezy,
Moby Dick's harder than KGB, but keep going.
Yeah, more, you get my general point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Like, it shouldn't, like, I get what you're saying. It is tough when you start going down that road.
Yeah, and I mean, that's my philosophy on judging. I actually respect that the Germans have a pretty different philosophy, and the fact that most Germans would say the thing that they see the less of should get scored higher because, well, there might be a few different reasonings, but that's consistently the way they take it. So I'm not just
because you see something less, it should get. I think the hardest tricks get scored highest.
That's what I'm trying to say. That's why if you
Germans
saw a second
think
double
when
KGB,
the difficulty's so close that you're just, it's a debate. Like, 5 people can argue and have, then yes, then I think it comes down to
in a dream,
creativity.
variety,
You were different.
in a dream world, if you're a perfect judge, doesn't exist, then you wouldn't change score because you would be so confident in your first score, or and I would think you would score as you go because I think it's more, you're remembering more finite details in the moment than like thinking back to an hour later, you know? So I think, yes, you are comparing, but I think that if you go back and you start questioning a bunch of stuff because some external, realistically, if you're comparing Thomas and Luca, this is considered an external factor over here. I don't really think that external factor should play in to that original debate, whether that in one universe it happened, in one universe it didn't happen, if you were a perfect judge. Because the only thing would be that would maybe start making you question if you were right the first time, unless you have a different philosophy on judging, which is...
I got a thought experiment for you. So let's say I do a run, cable run, rails, air tricks, kickers. Somebody does the exact same run to a T after me, but does it a little bit better. Does the first run still win because the second one was less creative because it just was a copy of the other version of it?
No, they did it better. You're saying they had
Better
either better execution or a harder trick. I'm saying if the execution is the same and the difficulty is debatable, then I'm going to creativity and other factors. But yes, that should be like a last resort.
Okay.
Also, I do think Lucas back 10 is probably harder than the KGB, but I think the KGB should get points for innovation.
I mean, that's fair.
But
I could go with that.
I just wanted to throw that out there because I think it's an interesting topic a lot of us talked about at that event. And a lot of people kind of, I'm not saying the most difficult trick should win. I think innovation should be a factor. However, on a best trick contest, but I think that...
Well, innovation factors in difficulty. If it hasn't been done before,
there is a mental
difficulty
side of it. There's like the 4-minute mile thing.
I mean, you could say
matters.
that the triple flip is less difficult than a 1080.
Yeah, I don't know. You could say that.
I think you could say that.
No,
Yeah, you definitely could say that.
Technical, but not difficult.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's more technical, but it's less difficult.
Yeah,
I don't
can see
know.
that. There's less
On modern, on current,
You don't pass the handle. You go up and you do
I'd say it's less technical, but
you don't pass the handle on the double KGB either.
The triple,
That's what I'm saying.
the triple is more difficult but less technical. It's a techie trick to do a spin. It's not a techie trick to do a flip.
Say that again.
In this way, the toe 10 is a back 10 is a more techie trick than a double or triple flip. A double and triple is commitment, fear, awareness, other things, but also generating that much lift and torque and all of that off of a wake on the technology we have today.
Yeah,
I would think it's more difficult. I've actually asked not to judge most boat contests because I feel extremely confident judging cable events, and I don't know if I would feel that way on this conversation. Like I'm more of a spectator in this world, but I think that the 10 is probably harder, but I think if you're in a like best trick contest, innovation should matter to some degree, even though the trick has been done.
So if T. Herm went out and did the triple flip again this year, would it have beat all the other tricks that went down? The 1080, the double KGB?
Yeah, I think so.
I still think so because I still think it's more difficult. But it doesn't need the innovation factor to be considered in the whole conversation. You know what I mean? But to go back to your cable thing, it's really hard to judge creativity on a cable park event because everyone's seen everyone ride. The guy who did it second could have done it first in practice. Then someone else could have copied him and just happened to get the luck of the draw to be first, do it worse. So to judge creativity on cable events gets tricky, I think. We do take it into consideration, but it's more in a compositional way than it can be on just like, oh, well, no one thought of that line because everyone saw it in practice,
Yeah.
Do you disagree? You could disagree. That's, again, another kind of... That's not like a rule. That's my opinion.
I think I want to switch gears. While we're on the topic of judging, I want to know how much a double up should impact the run, like in finals, after the 8-trick run, the double up. Because I don't know if you guys watched the live stream. I was there in person. I also watched the live stream. If I go quote for quote, Harley Clifford goes, Thomas Herman has gone full junior pro on us because he did because of his trick selection. He did a nose grab chromo, early pass Moby Dick. I don't know if he did he did a KGB 5, but that was the only Mob 5, and he did 1-9. So, like...
Is it a 9-trick? You're asking, is it a 9-trick pass? Should the double up count as 2 tricks? That's kind of what you're asking?
We're asking how much it should weight because it's, I don't know, my unprofessional cable opinion on a boat pass, he was very far down in the rankings, and the double up put him very high in the rankings.
Did he fall at all? I didn't watch.
Yeah, he fell first trick, got up, still did a full 8.
Still did 8. Okay, I also disagree that. Sorry,
he might have did
WWF
7.
team, but
Actually,
I don't.
he did 7.
I don't like this rule that you can still do 8 with a fall.
He did 7.
I think you should have 8 attempts, not 8 lands, but that's my opinion. And also it makes judging way easier because I think you should set up a format to make the judging as accurate as possible, and that doesn't do that. But I think that it would make sense logically for all 8 tricks to be 10, all 8 attempts at tricks to be 10%, and the double up to be 20%. We don't think in percentages, but that would kind of make sense logically to me. Is that too much, do you think?
How much?
20% double up, 80% each trick 10% roughly.
I mean, there's no right answer. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are.
I had 25-75 in my head. 25% double up, 75% the 8 trick run. That's how I would weight it.
50-50.
Now, I never...
No, I think I agree 25.
I never would think of a run. I was just trying to say the double up is worth double points as a single trick. It actually could be worth more, I guess, yeah. But I would never judge in a way of like thinking in a percentage like this necessarily. Unless it really came down to it, I might be like, okay, pass 1, pass 2, and double up. And like, let's break that down like 40-40-20 maybe, something like that. But
you're saying at Worlds, it seems to be that the double up was weighted very heavily.
Well, no one else landed a double up. But if you, so it essentially that everyone else had
nobody
0.
else landed one.
Only Nick landed
Nick
one.
landed one.
So I think that's a pretty big boost. Like if everyone else like folds on it,
even if you're doing the 20% thing,
yeah, like I might even
you got 0%.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like people always like intuitively, it's your numbers don't always match like your intuition. Like it's easy to stand on the dock and say one way, and as a judge, I put in numbers and been like, oh, like I don't have that person ahead, and then I look at the numbers and I'm like, well, the rules are these are the percentages, and this person is ahead. And those percentages, my numbers are right, you know? And so, like, if you did percentages, it'd be really hard to make up a 0 on 25% of your score because you'd have to beat the guy by 25% on
That's what I'm saying. If you
or,
put a
sorry,
goose egg on 20%, you're toast pretty much.
More than
like,
25%. Like, what is that percentage? 33%? You'd have to beat them by on everything else. So, if you scored the rest, it'd have to be like a 60 to a 20 or like an 80 to a 40. Like, that'd have to be how big of a gap you are on the other two. And I think sometimes people don't realize how the math works, but it's not a percentage. So I don't know, like how much should a fall or like a incomplete run matter? Like in snowboarding, you fall, runs over. You butt check,
like
or you put your hand down, runs over. You fall for it early, runs over. It is not that harsh on boat for sure, and it's not that harsh on cable.
I think on cable it can be that harsh. On boat it's tough because conditions are like so varied.
In features we're getting that way, but not in park fully yet. Yeah. Because again, it's actually viewed completely different as a judge. But I think that when I don't know. It's a general conversation in all of boat. Like if there's only 8 tricks and someone does 6 bangers and someone does 8 solid ones and it doesn't fall, who wins? I mean,
to me that's like wild. That's even a conversation because if you compare it to any other sport, it's like you're just skipping sections. Like it'd be like you just rode by a rail
almost every time.
And that's wild to me. I'm saying it's like that'd be like saying there's 8 features on a slope style run in snowboarding. You skip 2 and you can still win. Like,
this is why I don't want to judge boat.
happen.
Not because I'm not confident about my boat judging. I'm pretty confident about what trick's harder and catching all the composition stuff. I just don't want to come in and have them expect one thing, and I just am like on a totally different wavelength, you know?
Yeah.
I think you're kind of outdated on that. I think they're going to give it to the full 8 9 out of 10 times now. Look at Worlds. Kai did a full 8.
If the trick difficulty is similar, but I mean, I was in the boat at Moomba with judges. Like, it wasn't necessarily the case when someone would go like cop out tricks. And I guess I'm talking about pro women, junior pro men. Like, in pro men, this doesn't happen because they don't do cop-out tricks. But when someone's going and doing, like, Tootsie and Dum Dum, I mean, that's a whole conversation. But, like, when someone's doing a bunch of basic inverts, you know, as a pro women, just to get through a round, and another girl falls and loses those 2 basic inverts, but then has equal bangers plus 1 more banger, you know what I mean? Like, it does happen that the person who had filler tricks that were really, like, I mean, you do a front roll and you do a scarecrow. Should the front roll really get you that much points? Probably not. But if someone falls and you haven't had a complete run, do you take the complete run? You know, like, I mean, these are conversations
I think so.
we have over beers weekly, I feel like. So
The
we
falling
can
thing in
forever.
wakeboarding, I feel like has always been wild to me, where it's like fall is just like excused half the time. And
Well,
it just doesn't make any sense.
I don't think on cable, and I didn't at Worlds, I don't think you should get picked up.
Never. It should never. You
You-
put a run together or you don't. That's
On
black
boat, it
and white.
makes sense because on boat, you get picked up in a general set. On cable, you don't get picked up. And I don't know. That's just maybe the snow skate influence, you know? I mean, skateboarding, they fall all the time, pick up a board, still get scored high. It's not necessarily the end of everything. But in snowboarding, it is. It's just what's better for the sport. I mean, I've had this conversation 10
I think
times
what's
already.
better for the sport is to keep that shit moving. So if somebody falls, get the jet ski, get him out of the water, and send the next person.
Well, that's
down
why
the
I don't
pass.
do pickups for that
That's
reason.
the same for
Might as
boat.
well just run the boat a straight line, do full A instead of turn around then.
But it's
Facts.
it's the unit economics of it that I was talking about earlier. That doing 2 runs financially cost a lot more money, and these events need to keep happening and make sense and stuff. So like the amount of money each run cost has to make sense, you know. And so they don't do 2 runs. But I would try to on cable. We didn't do 2 runs. I spent 2 years like sleeplessly having conversations and running numbers to try to figure out how I can make 2 runs matter with the same entries or work. And it works, but it wasn't easy. And it's a lot harder on boat. I also think you should just not turn around.
I think they should also have like 4 boats there.
2 runs, no turnaround. 1 boat driving the double up.
Yeah.
A 3rd boat driving the double up. 2 boats driving riders. And
Ropes
you
are ready to
do
go.
4 tricks in a double up or 5 tricks in a double up or something. And you choose which side you double ups on at the beginning. And there's no turnarounds. And while you're doing the pass, a boat's idling and getting the next rider. And everyone gets 2 attempts at it.
I mean, if you got 1 to 2 mil to throw at some boats, then
The
might
boats
as
aren't the
well.
problem, dude.
The boats
The
are the
dealer's
problem,
right there.
right?
They can dump those things in, no problem. Dude.
I mean, let me be
you
clear.
got drivers, but
I work for WWA, but I don't know the boat numbers at all. The boats might be a problem. I have no legitimate.
they have one
Understand
sitting in the
this.
freaking parking lot, dude. Dump that sucker in.
Well, yeah, because they have to have a
but
backup boat.
gas driver, like there's a lot.
Well,
of
you do
other
always have to
I'm
have
just saying the benefit would far outweigh the cost.
You
in
do
my
always
opinion.
have to have 2 boats. And if, for example, the day costs 1 day less, it could make sense to have 3 extra staff because you're paying 20 staff to be there. The location costs money. You know, it could make
We
sense.
get it's going to cost money to have more boats, but I think the benefit far outweighs.
No, it
whatever
could cost
costs
less,
were.
I'm saying. Because if you
To
could
have-
make the event in 1 less day and you
Oh,
only pay 3
yeah,
more
yeah,
employees
you
in a
could
boat,
do
you
way quicker.
actually, if you could run quicker, you actually could save money. And that's one thing I dive into on a regular
And guess what? I
basis.
think in 5 years, if you did this contest format for 5 years, people would begin to realize that it moves so much faster they'd actually want to go, and then you'd have more people.
But there's probably a lot of I mean, man, I think I say this on every podcast. There are so many passionate, smart, good people in our industry right now that are contemplating and thinking of these things that guarantee there's a problem that we aren't seeing right now that they're seeing or that needs to still get worked out or whatever, you know? And of course there is just people, everyone is slow to change, whether it's a brand, whether it's riders, like everyone will complain at first. And that could be part of it. We could be working to that direction, but there could be other factors that we don't see. And most likely there are.
I mean, it's easy to sit here into a microphone and be like, well, this is how you should do it. You get 3 or 4 boats, you have all these people drive it, bing, bang, boom, we'll be in and out, no problem.
And you know, if we did an event in America, it'd be easy. But importing boats costs a ton of money. I don't know how all this works, where they're getting the boats from, how it's, you know, but, you know, they do have 2 boats on every site. So if you don't do a double up, you could do 2 boats. You do have the fairness of people complaining that that boat's not the same as this boat, but I would argue that there's enough weight shift from gas leaving or whatever and people maybe moving on the boat slightly that, although at Moomba, it's like no one moves. Like you have to stay in the same
It'd also
spot.
go a lot faster if everyone just used the same rope length.
Also, judges
Boat
are
speed.
sit in the boat, so then you have to deal with that problem. Where do judges sit? But there are factors, but
Yeah, we can figure it out. But
it could be figured out. I think it would be cool
I
to
just think
do-
anything to make it move faster.
I always wanted to do an event at Valdosta called like the Pilot or something, and it'd be like a full size event, a 2.0 event, and a boat event, and it all be the formats like this that were like just all the ideas we had. Like, could we make it happen, and does it make sense, and just try out that type of stuff.
Be cool. All right. Anything else you want to touch on? All right. Is that it? Hammered it.
I think we did it.
Love it.
Hopefully, people enjoyed the nerdy or the detailed
We
conversations.
dove in, as we always do. But thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you to all the Patreon subscribers. Thanks you guys for coming on. It means a lot for you guys to come out here and chat before this hurricane strolls through Orlando. By the time you're listening to this, the studio will either still be here or not. We will find out in a matter of days.
The Cove and Revo. I just hope those survive.
Yeah, hopefully.
Praying for those.
Those two will be the ones that hit the hardest. So, all right. We'll see you guys next time.